Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's podcast 453. Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, here in studio with Johnny V.
4 minutes and 53 seconds late?
More than that. We're not going to blame anyone.
We're blaming the great state of Vermont. No, their maple syrup slows everything down.
We'll just say we're not there. All right. Tonight, we're going to have a couple special guests who we're going to get to in just literally a few moments here. We're going to have Jonathan Gomez from JomezPro, along with Jeff Spring from the Disc Golf Pro Tour. If somehow you were stuck under a rock today, you missed out on the information that was widely talked about, released, and informed and misinformed by some. So today, hopefully, we'll get to the bottom of any and all questions and details.
I will say, if you're just hearing about this first from us,
then you're in big trouble.
No, bless you that we're your sole source of news, because getting it anywhere else is not to be trusted. Only here.
I don't think it's possible we are the first source, that's for sure, in this case. But nonetheless, we're excited to have a little chat. Some of you will probably still have some questions. As I said in my Instagram post a little while ago, make sure you've read the article. There's almost most of the questions that we saw today were in fact answered one click away. So hopefully you've got some that are unique, and if so, we'll gladly infuse them in where we can. So let's just get right to it. Without further ado, let's bring in Jonathan and Jeff. Hi, guys.
How you doing, guys?
How's it going?
Good. Jeff, thank you. We're assuming you're out there. Yes, you're in Vermont on the East Coast, so a little bit later. Jonathan, are you at home or near home in Texas?
Yes, I am in Texas.
Well, thank you, guys. We know it's probably been a busy day with a million questions and probably lots of things surrounding the hype. But Jonathan, I'm gonna go right to you, and rather than me introduce or explain what happened, give us the headline news here today.
Yeah, so we had been in talks with the Disc Golf Pro Tour for well over a year, and after the start of last season, and kind of just over the course of the season had been working on something like this and using last season as like setting the stage for us to really hit it hard in this off season. And really just a lot of effort, a lot of time went into this. And so we're really excited that we finally got to the point where we could announce this today, because honestly, we had already been kind of operating with this in place since the beginning of this season.
Yeah, that kind of goes along with what we've seen this year with the Jomez camera guys carrying the Live View backpacks for the broadcast. You guys doing the FPO coverage with the Two Hot Geese. Awesome, great choice, all that fun stuff. That's actually a good point. That decision to bring in the Two Hot Geese, was that like a group decision, or was that primarily a JomezPro decision?
I mean, it was the only decision, honestly, for us. We knew
if you know them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been friends with Madison for probably since I started showing up on the tour, and then of course Erica over time, been friends with her, and of course whenever there was a change in the discussion of who was going to be providing the FPO next day coverage, I mean, that was our first choice, and of course it was a no-brainer. So
all right, and so even though we haven't physically said it, the news specifically today is that JomezPro has been acquired and is underneath the umbrella of the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the Disc Golf Network. Is that a fair way to put it there, Mr. Spring, CEO of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, for somebody who might not know?
Well, I think there's several ways to look at it, but we look at it as a reinforcement of our partnership. Yes, they've come into the Disc Golf Pro Tour family and we've acquired the brand, but JomezPro will continue to be creatively directed by Jonathan. And for the foreseeable future, we'll just continue, with more support from the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And I think it makes a good amount of sense for both brands and for both companies. I think that, we're working hand in hand and to increase efficiencies, using camera ops, support staff, business administration. It's just going to make both companies stronger. And we're so tied together as it is. So, that's kind of our viewpoint. And it's been rolling out this season, and we're excited to, kind of keep going and see what's on the horizon, because we feel like we can do big things, and that it's a really great win-win.
And so you're talking about creating efficiencies. Jonathan, you had JomezPro had 20 employees about? Is that the right number approximately?
Yeah, it was probably closer to 18
18?
full-time
Okay.
employees.
And are all those employees coming over, Jeff, or is there a little bit of overlap? I know, with the HR or anything like that, billing or payroll. I've gone through 1,000 acquisitions at my 9 to 5, so all these things run through my head right now. Did the DGPT acquire all 18 people? It's so hard for me not to say we when I talk about the live broadcast. It's still, like Jonathan can understand, there's still a little part of me, it's still my baby, just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we were looking around 16 W-2 from Jomez at the time where the acquisition was being finalized. So the majority are, coming over in the same capacity or a very similar capacity. We are kind of aligning, kind of the fun business part of the transaction is aligning, HR policies, company handbook, that type of stuff, which is almost complete. It's underway, and is almost to the finish line. In a couple of areas where there are like overlapping services, we're working with contracts of employees that were W-2 and that we're trying to fit in and see if we can incorporate and see if it's not just a straight redundancy, like the same position doing the same thing where we don't need two. But we've been really thoughtful as we can be, and careful about understanding, trying to build in time. So everybody that was working at JomezPro is either a W-2 or under a contract with the DGPT going forward. And there's definitely some things that are changing and that will be tricky or hard, but I think the majority of the changes are positive. And talking to the team on both sides, I think both teams are excited at the possibilities going forward.
Well, Jonathan clearly hasn't read the handbook and the dress code. Otherwise, he'd be wearing plaid tonight with you, Jeff. But
that's just a Vermont dress code. That's a Vermont dress code.
Okay, he's not. Yeah, that's true. He's in Texas. He's probably got boots on that we can't see. You talked about contractors real quick, and I just want to quickly touch on before I hand it over to Terry. Would the contractors be considered the commentators? Because that's part of JomezPro is the big sexy Barry. Were they full time or are they contractors for Jomez? And obviously they're being included in this.
Yeah, I'll jump in, but yeah, so they are contractors and they are being included and coming over. And so that's where it's like, the number of employees, we have, we work with you guys regularly with multi-year contracts. You're extension, if not part of the team. And, employees, that's kind of like a fine line. If you have a recurring contract in some ways, you're part of the team. And so, there are probably more people coming over and being a part of the ecosphere than just the 16 that, I'm referencing. But I'll let, Jonathan speak to that too.
Well, I guess I'll follow it up along those lines in terms of people. Some people may say, holy cow, you're up to 16 or 18 or 20 or whatever the number is or was or will be. Jonathan, break down, because, we just talked about the contractors kind of being separate. And then you think of 3 or 4-ish cameramen, and you think of 1 or 2 editors generally. These are all just general, maybe, perceptions. Explain some of the other roles and people that you've had that have been working with you and the types of things they do that maybe the rest of the world didn't even realize.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's at least 4 camera operators, 2 editors, sometimes a third in there on any given, at any given tournament stop. And then there's people that help us transport equipment that they find other rules once they go on because most people know we used to travel in an RV.
Mhm.
After 21, we finally got out of that because we outgrew the RV model because we could only fit 4 or 5 people in there. And like I just told you, how many people go on the road. I mean, so we had to switch to somebody transporting our gear for us, and then the rest of the crew traveling flying or getting in another vehicle or something. And then of course there's social media, there's merchandise, so that's 3 or 4 people at times. There's accounting, financial type stuff. Um, yeah, it adds up really quickly, and which is it's just awesome because we've made it from just when I started by myself, and then when I started with just another 1 or 2 other people, and over time you're like, well, now we need this person, now we need this person, and you just get to that point, and then one day you realize I cannot believe we have this many people, working at this, what was like a small company, at this point. And it's just kind of one of those things where if you don't have that experience in running a business or growing a business, you just kind of figure it out. And that's really what's gotten us to this point, is just kind of getting out there and just putting ourselves out in the throwing ourselves to the fire and saying like, how's this going to happen? And it's been awesome because of course there's different ways we could have gone about this, but this is the only way. If I was to do it all over again, it's probably still would have happened the exact same way, where we just kind of slowly built and got to that point. And I know that the Pro Tour has seen something very similar in their experience in coming up from a small handful of people.
So the organization, the Jomes Pro organization, a lot of people maybe do or don't know for the longest time. Michael and Juan and you. And right now with this negotiation, were you the only primary person that needed to do this, or was Juan still involved, or Michael, or anyone? I don't know exactly, obviously, how things worked out with all the original employees and whatnot.
Yeah, so on the higher level of things, a lot of people may not know that I was a 50% partner with Juan Luis
Mm.
Garcia, who came in and was responsible for elevating the Jomez brand in many ways, not only from the graphics. I think at 2016 Worlds, you can see the tournament before 2016 Worlds, and then 2016 Worlds. That's Juan. And then of course just any of the branding, all of our jerseys and our social media. I used to run the Instagram at 10,000 people, and he ran it up to 100,000 very quickly before he handed it off because he needed to. And it just got to the point um, where Juan felt like he had kind of made his mark on Jomez and done what he had come to do, and finally realized that, hey, like I never really planned on being here forever, and I was probably here longer than I thought I was going to be, and I had a great time, and I want to leave like on good terms, when I feel like this is the right time. And so yeah, that's just kind of when it came to at a certain point in last season, where we had some discussions about it, but he finally decided, hey, I think this is the time. And so that's when it comes time, whenever half of your company, is owned by somebody, and then you have to say like, either we buy it back or we have to find another partner that can take over that role. And of course there's so many ways you can do that. You can go like venture capital type routes, but then you're risking selling the company to somebody that really doesn't care about disc golf and only cares about the numbers. And that can get very dangerous, because then all of a sudden people's jobs are at risk, and there's no connection to seeing, like, being able to stand up for why certain people need to be there, why things are done a certain way, when it's not just about maximizing every dollar. And that's where the conversation with the tour came in. Like, it started very early in last year in the season, whenever we knew these types of things were going to happen, and to start having that conversation and feeling like, of course, having different options and considering them very carefully, but knowing that ultimately the tour was our first choice of saying, like, if we're going to move forward and somebody's got to fill that role and help us continue to scale this company. I really wanted it to be the team at the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I'm really good friends with Jeff. I've been friends with him ever since we first showed up on the tour, and Todd Rainwater. And then of course I've got to meet so many other people as we've continued these discussions beyond this. And yeah, the timing couldn't have been better, because the tour was interested in something like this, and Juan was going to make his exit, and we just were able to all work together. And he was a big part of that, of figuring out exactly how that was going to happen. And now we finally made this official. And honestly, I think this is the best case scenario for something like this to happen in a company like ours.
What's Juan doing right now? If he's out, I'm just curious if you know, if you chatted with him, like what's his next
Johnny,
big
we
thing?
can't afford him either.
No, I
As
know.
far as I know, I don't know what he's doing professionally, but I know that he's able to finally kind of take a step back and relax. And
for him.
I think he goes to a lot of LAFC games, the MLS team there in Los Angeles, because I see, I still talk to him. I see his stuff on Instagram and stuff, and I think he's doing that. And honestly, I couldn't be happier for him, because I know that the stresses of this job can be very overwhelming at times. And I think that's finally when he decided, like, I want to do this before, I feel like I'm here too long. And so he was able to do that. And of course, then take that time to be with his family and kind of take a load off and just kind of plan his next move. But he's an incredibly talented person. He did so much for disc golf. I can't wait to see, honestly, what he does next, because whatever it is, it's going to be big.
Yeah, and some other day on another time, I'll tell you guys my greatest Juan story that may or may not have helped shape and mold part of my career. But now I want to go over to, last year it was clearly this wild announcement that we saw JomezPro saying, hey, we want to secure ourselves lead card coverage of MPO moving forward for the next 2 years. That was the beginning of last year, I think, is when we saw that announcement. And you were willing to pay for it. And dare I say it, the business model kind of flipped on its head for the first time, in that we've seen, a lot of post-production companies getting paid to come do their services. And now the model was flipped on its head, which is what most professional sports organizations have, which is where you pay for the rights to go get footage. And then that, well, I guess my question is, how did that factor into this year? What, if you had that model and that idea last year, did that play any role into the decision making for last year and this year's activities? And then doubling your workload by going to pick up FPO as well. So I guess either of you can answer that, but yeah, how did that factor in?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this conversation started very early in the season last year. There's a lot of these things that just started falling into place around the same time. So of course we made that announcement and had the intention of following through with that. But because of the way that things transpired, and the fact that the contract was with the Pro Tour, but also the Pro Tour was now in the conversation of coming in and basically helping us execute this next step, it really, that didn't last very long, but not in a negative way. It was more like, okay, well, we have this in place, but how can we basically rearrange this? And it made sense to do it with the people that we had the contract with in the first place. And so really it was just us continuing on with last season, but knowing what was ultimately going to happen.
So maybe looking back or thinking back, because we have seen disc golf grow, obviously throughout these, all four of us here have seen that, and all of our viewers have seen that. Do you feel like that even that amount of $250,000 a year for MPO coverage, do you feel like that was maybe too aggressive of an offering, or was that within the wheelhouse of what makes sense for how much coverage should be worth? Because when that was announced last year, every other company in disc golf was like, good for them. We could never do that. Nobody else could have even thought about putting out that kind of money to secure that footage. Do you feel like that was an aggressive amount?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. But it was by design. We wanted to help elevate the sport and get more eyeballs on, exactly what it means to be involved in disc golf. It's like the Paul Macbeth $10 million contract, and it's something that we took the time to calculate and say, okay, based on what we know, this is something I think that we can offer, and really set that standard of what it means to have the rights to cover disc golf media. And but like I said, it is awesome as that was, things started changing very, very quickly. And so, we basically we stuck to that up until the point where we knew that things were going to change. And so, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of ways you could look at that and say, like, should we have done that differently? But honestly, I just don't see a way that we were going to do it any differently, because that was a very calculated decision that we made.
So, Jeff, talking about the acquisition of JomezPro, the Pro Tour, and you've said it on this podcast and other podcasts, the DGN or DGPT kind of had a set 5-year plan. this is when we want to be profitable. This is when we want to, and I know kind of last year was the year, and then it got pushed back a year because of a lot of the reinvestment that was done. Does this acquisition kind of push that back another year, another 2 years? Or do you see this as being kind of we'll say a wash, and it doesn't affect that?
No, I think it's a positive. We see Jomez as Pro as one of the more valuable brands in the entire industry. And so, we have a chance to help grow the brand and help be a part of the development. And it's something that we feel like will be profitable, and is a value add. So I don't think it sets us back. Obviously, there's a return on every investment, and we feel that this will return in a good amount of time. A set amount of time that. In the meantime, though, it will certainly not do anything but help, operational sustainability from our perspective. It's a great investment from our perspective. And, from our perspective, the deal last year almost had very little to do with this deal. As Jonathan said, things changed quickly, namely that there was an opportunity to become a stakeholder. And then, that progressed to the point where we were actually able to acquire the brand in a way that just, was very synergistic, just, makes a lot of sense. Our goal as a tour is to create the biggest stage for the players and translate that out to the world, whether it's through people coming on site or online. So Jomez is a core part of our media strategy in making footage available for free to everyone in the world that wants to go on YouTube. And that's going to help grow the game. And there's a lot of growth that needs to happen. So if we can help fuel that growth, at the same time, acquire an incredibly valuable brand and help that brand, kind of pursue its dreams in another phase of the company, we just see all those as positives. And operationally, I think it will only help us. So,
and Jonathan, I listened to the Upshot interview, and if for everyone listening to this, if you want any other information, great podcast, great interview with those guys. They answered a lot of the questions, but one of my questions for you, Jonathan, was if you talked about some of the issues that you guys ran into this last year with the decrease in Patreon support. We've seen it on our Patreon. I think everybody has, just advertising and things like that. They're all down. We've seen. You said the market or the shop, the Jomez shop. Discs are easier to get everywhere now. So really, we're selling to our biggest fans. Do you think JomezPro would have been around another 2 years if it weren't for the Pro Tour? Or what would you have had to have done? I mean, were you guys still profitable, so to speak, or would we have seen Jonathan behind a camera again?
I mean, I would do anything for this company to ensure that it keeps going. So I really think that, like you said, Johnny, that this was not just a unique issue to Jomez or even to disc golf. You do your research and you see online all of the articles and all the massive layoffs that all these companies had or how they performed in 2022. This is just like, this was something that none of us could have really seen coming. And it's just basically just in real time, you're adapting to how to adjust to this. And for me, like I'm very much like, what am I trying to say? I value like the human resources element of exactly of what we're doing the most. So for me, it wasn't about like, okay, well, if we cut half of our staff and I go back out on the road, then we'll be just fine. We had to find other ways of it got really scrappy to make it happen, but that's just a part of it. We were a small company and we were able to make changes in order to continue what we were doing and never skipped a beat. We never missed a single tournament. We didn't just say, well, we can't afford to go to the West Coast this year, so sorry, we're not going to uphold our end of the deal. That's a big part of exactly what has gotten us this far, is sticking true to our word and protecting the people that helped us get this far. And of course, and in turn, making sure that we follow up on our promise to the fans and making sure that, make good on exactly what we said we were going to do. So of course, last year was the hardest year we've ever seen. Like that's no secret, and anybody that was involved in a business or ran a business knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it was going to be hard, and it was very hard. But I'm also really proud of the fact that we made it through that, and now we have this new direction that we're going to take with the tour. And it's kind of like one of those things that you really, when you're in the middle of it, you you really hate it because it doesn't feel very good to be in that situation. But I also took the time to be very conscious in those moments so that I knew what it felt like to be in those moments so that we could build upon that and make sure that we don't, you know, allow ourselves to like get caught off guard like that again. Cause it was just a new thing. We made it through COVID, and then we saw the boom, and then we finally saw what happens after the boom, you know? So that's just how it is. This is nothing like it's hard to say like, oh, we could have done this different or this different, but it was just like we didn't know what we didn't know. And I'm very proud of the fact that the entire team, like, we're able to rely on each other to get through that. And now I'm very excited because I think we're so much stronger than we were a year ago, you know, at this time.
Yeah, I think the Pro Tour is actually unique in the fact that over the last 2 years, they've continued to grow. And it shows a lot about the Pro Tour leadership, the support behind it. I know my 9 to 5, we're down 33%, 35% in our labor. We've cut over 125 positions in at one point 540 person company.
They
Like,
should just pay you less.
well, no,
Keep
they
those other
shouldn't.
people
No,
on.
they shouldn't. But in general, I mean, I work in real estate, totally different kind of thing. But I agree. I mean, it's amazing what the Pro Tour has been able to do.
Yeah,
And that's
and it's
a lot
honestly
thanks to
something
Jeff.
that we don't really talk about enough, you know. And I'm not saying I want to get into it right now, but if all these companies wanted to really get into what it was like last year, you would hear a lot of stories similar to ours, or stories that involve a lot more layoffs. I know certain companies that they laid off half their staff last year, you know, and they were in the disc golf industry, and I was just like blown away because I couldn't even imagine making that decision, how difficult that must be. So for us, like, that was the resource that we protected first and foremost, and had to make sacrifices in other ways in order to get through the last year. And it was just one of those things that, yeah, it was just a very tough year for a lot of people, and we weren't, you know, immune to that, and we might have been even more susceptible to it because of, you know, our inexperience with navigating situations like that and just the smaller amount of staff. But at the same time, we were able to get really close and have those real conversations in order to figure out how to navigate through it. And here we are on the other side of it.
So now that you're part of the Pro Tour, DGPT, I guess, what are you most looking forward to, Jonathan, like, in this new position? And I guess I want to flip that as well and say, what are you
Least looking forward
no,
to.
or not least, but what are you most glad you don't have to do now as part of Jomez? Like, what's the one thing that you're like, thank God I don't have to do that anymore? Like, we can leave that to Christine or
honestly,
something.
yeah, there's a lot of things that you know, that a lot of the team members here at Jomez have had to put on all these extra hats that didn't necessarily fit our job descriptions. And I think the biggest part of it is just like the administrative side of things. There's things that involve, you know, paying taxes and HR related things, and even just the higher level financial stuff that's really hard to keep track of if you're doing something else with your time. There's only so many hours in the day. And if I'm, you know, working on the direction we want to go with production stuff and just the brand, but then also have to call, you know, different states and deal with them, and the type of, you know, obligations we have to them with all these employees that we have all around the country. There's all kinds of things like that. And the Disc Golf Pro Tour, you know, it has an incredible, you know, talent pool of just people that are they're way more experienced in this type of thing, and they were hired for that reason, versus someone like me or someone like Juan, who basically had to pick it up because it was just a necessity, because we couldn't necessarily afford to hire somebody that has been trained to do that. So I'm looking forward to really just ultimately just playing to our strengths. Everybody on the team, everybody on the Pro Tour team playing to their strengths. And I think that that's just the best way to move forward. Every company that's on a much higher level does exactly that. And now we have that opportunity to do that and have access to those resources. And we can also provide the resources that we're best at, and playing to our strengths, and providing even more support to the tour, you know, from a production standpoint. And this is just, it makes the most sense that this is the next, you know, step for us.
So everything you've just told us is straight from your mouth. However, others are going to, of course, generate their own stories or thought process to it, and I'll spin both of them so each of you have an answer for them. Jeff, to you or to the Pro Tour, the statement will likely be, or has been by some, you're pushing Jomez out, you're squashing them, you're oppressing them, you're doing whatever, and you're cutting them out, and you're a big a-hole for doing so, or the company is just trying to squash them. And Jonathan, on your side, of course, people are going to say, oh, look at this guy. He's getting his bag and he's selling out. What a sellout. How dare you sell out? So I guess my question...
Can I sell out?
I wish.
Please.
My question to either of you, or to both of you, given kind of those narratives, again, that are already out there, given those narratives, Jeff, what would you say to when someone says like, oh, that's just not fair. You guys have been, you guys are being bullies, or you're pushing them out, or whatever, or you're overtaking or overcoming them, and that's not fair, or something of that nature. Because I'm sure you've seen it or heard that as well already.
I think it's maybe just a concern from fans of the Jomez brand that really care about, what they've produced, the Jomez has produced through the years. I'm a Jomez fan, and I don't want to, think that something that I really care about that connects me to disc golf, that has brought along my fanhood and connected me to a lot of the personalities that I watch and I cheer on. I don't want to think that is going to change, or that it's going to be corrupted. So I guess I would just start by saying, like, I understand the concern or the fear, but all we can do is just kind of speak what's true for us and what's gone on with the deal here. I wouldn't necessarily say much more than, there's a lot of years of collaboration and partnership deals and putting Jomez, behind the lens on the Disc Golf Pro Tour that I think speaks contrary to that concern. And I would, just again, maybe every year I've said in interviews, with that same kind of fear of like, hey, this is going to change. And I really am a Jomez fan first. And, we understand that, but, would say the same thing every year, which I'd say again now, which is, our fans too, we appreciate the hard work. And that I think if people are outside the community, maybe they don't understand that there's not that many people that actually, put their entire lives into disc golf. And most of the people that do that professionally do it above and beyond because they're passionate about the sport and see a lot of potential for the sport's future and have a lot of respect for its past. And, when, you recognize that in a company and in the employees and hardworking folks at Jomez or any other company that's out on the road, really grinding, to bring coverage for people at home. I think that it's a different perspective. You understand that you don't want to lose people. You want to bring more people in that will be like adding to the pool of talent that's working, professionally in the industry. And usually for, luckily recently, I feel like professionals have been able to sustain themselves better in the industry beyond, the glitz and glamour of high paying contracts for the best pros in the world. And, I think that, when the people who are grinding to do that are getting rightfully maybe some stable, footing to stand on as a professional in the sport. And I think internally we look at it from that perspective, like this is a great opportunity to give, more stability to a group of professionals that will help our industry. And it just so happens to look like this acquisition. So just getting back to my responses, I think that it's a legitimate concern, but from my perspective, I don't share the concern because I know the relationship that we've had with Jomez, opportunities we've had, make different decisions in the past, and know that the motivating factors are, support for an iconic brand in the sport that's very valuable. I think everybody who's paid attention to the sport understands that there's great value in the Jomez brand. And, what we've all kind of touched on here is 2022 is more of a plateau year for the sport coming out of a great growth spurt. We're excited to be able to, kind of look to the next horizon of growth and think about the possibilities with a valuable brand as the sport continues its march forward. Because, we saw continued growth last year. We anticipate, pretty standard steady growth across all sectors of the industry, whether it's 15% or 20% or 25%, depending on if it's retail or viewership or, all the other parts of what make disc golf industry that it is. So, we're forward thinking, and we know that Jomez is part of our growth strategy, not just for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, but for the sport at whole. They brought in a lot of viewers, and that's the most valuable thing for our sport is more people playing disc golf, more people becoming really big fans of disc golf, getting hooked on coverage. Everybody knows, whether it's through Jomez or, other YouTube videos, through podcasts, free live coverage from Smashbox, people become junkies. And then really we feel that that's good for the world. We feel like more disc golfers is better. It's a great community. So, yeah, that's a long-winded way of answering your question.
I hear what you're saying, and so Jonathan, clearly, like, again, it's always funny to me when like a band is, I'll use a band as an example, small, independent, and then they have a song, they go off, and then they start seeing like, worldwide success or something, and then everyone says, "Oh, you're just a sellout," and it's like, well, wait, don't you try to like make money and be successful at what you do? But some of the naysayers, some people might be like, oh, this guy's just selling out. Like, it's just such a move that, which again, even if it was in any capacity true, I don't know why it's always viewed as such a negative. But anyway, what do you say to someone that feels like, oh man, this guy's just selling out to the man, and and I'm not going to support them on Patreon or something like that because now they're just owned by this bigger company. Does that affect you? Does that even resonate in any way with you?
I mean, I can understand people's concern, but like you said, like we've built this to be a business and to support people's livelihoods. And like we said, 18 people, like that, none of that is an easy task. And if people had any idea how hard it is to be out on the road for that long and to support that many people, full-time payroll, all that, this is something that we had no idea it would even get this big. And for us to be at this point, to have the opportunity now to partner with the Pro Tour to continue supporting what we've built, because we knew it had gotten to a point where we needed to make some changes in order for us to be the best version of ourselves and to get back to doing exactly what we wanted to do, and to have the support from the tour to help us in areas that we weren't as experienced in, and to the point of what people saying, like, selling out or whatever. Like, my investment is right back into disc golf. It's exactly what I want to be doing. It's I'm here for as long as I can be, because I have no intention of going anywhere, and I'm invested right back into this sport and into the tour, and to making sure that I'm here to play to my strengths and do everything I can to continue, seeing the sport get to places that even now where we've seen it, that we still can't even imagine like how big it can get. And that's what I'm most excited about, is to prove that, like, I'm not here because I sold out or whatever. I'm here because I'm committed to seeing this next phase be as successful as it can be, and who knows where we'll be in another 5 years. Like, it's all very exciting because things change so fast.
So your plan isn't to start up JomezPro for pickleball? I know you're a big pickleball guy these days. I follow you on socials. We're not going to see some pickleball post production, which is a lot of peas.
I love playing pickleball, and I started out loving playing disc golf, and then it turned into that, and it became a job, which is totally fine. But I would love to enjoy pickleball for at least a little bit longer before I just make it, try to make a job out of it. I'm very addicted to it in the same way that people get addicted to disc golf or anything else. So yeah, I'm all about it. And there's a ton of players on tour that play pickleball, and we love doing it. So that's what I'm committed to, is seeing this deal go through and making sure that we get started off on the wrong foot. And then whenever I do find time, I'll go play some pickleball.
Yeah, but hear me out. You can go to the pickleball industry too and be like, look what I did with this disc golf industry thing. I'm just saying.
Look how big it is now.
Pickleball Pro is on the way. Just for the sake of putting it out there as well, because again, rumors swirl and there's questions, even if they've been answered or not, or even if it's in black and white. Either of you can jump in on this. True or false, I am getting replaced by Big Germ, Sexton, and Ulibarri.
I hope so. Here tonight?
I haven't seen you put in an application, so I can't necessarily consider you until you.
No, but I'm saying they're going to come take my job on live. That's what the world is.
Oh, I thought you said you were trying to come over.
No.
I
I don't dare. Try to usurp those guys. There is a lot of question though, and I know we kind of briefly touched on commentary earlier, but I guess maybe just to put it out there for the world to hear,
nothing is changing.
That the post-production teams as of now are staying all intact. Live teams for the most part staying all intact. That's pretty much the game plan.
Yeah, I mean, as it pertains to JomezPro, like the Disc Golf Pro Tour wanted the JomezPro brand, so why would we come in and change, what we're offering? If anything, like I just said, we're trying to play to our strengths and continue to improve that product. And I'll let Jeff speak to anything outside of that.
Yeah, that's well put, Jonathan. I just wanted to reassure Terry that he's not going to be fired on air again, maybe.
Not this week.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that.
Not this week.
Wow.
Next time we have Jeff Spring on. Wasn't that a great night, Jonathan? Wasn't that a great night?
I don't know about great, but it was a night. It was one of the nights of history, I'll say that.
It was another brick in the building of the Pro Tour.
Just think about it. You may not be here,
right?
if we hadn't all been fired.
Think about how far it wasn't that long ago that we had the same issue, and just this is one of those things. It's like people like maybe forget how far we've come from moments like that, and then they see stuff like this and like, I can't believe this is happening. And what does this mean? It's like there was a time where we weren't even allowed on the Disc Golf Pro Tour,
November
and it's just
2019.
Like, think about all that's happened and then put that up against news like this. And we're trying to tell you like this is a good thing versus some other things that have happened. So, and I'm not trying to like knock that was just a part of the process.
Yeah.
Like this is another one of those things where it's like it couldn't have happened any differently, I don't think, because we just didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know what we were going to end up, how things were going to end up being, years down the line. So this is actually it makes for a really good story and maybe a really good documentary one day when we can really go back and we're all old and gray and they sit us down and we just like really go through the whole story. It's just like one of those things. It's like
I was at a Boy Scout camp when I got the call,
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, it's been fun and I wouldn't change a thing. I don't honestly, like the good and the bad, I wouldn't change a single thing. And I'm very excited to have a retrospective back on this moment here 5-10 years from now, just to so we can look back on that as well.
Yeah.
Some of this. Go ahead, Jeff.
What I can say is that in terms of DGN, we keep being able to maybe add more people to the broadcast, whether it's through Tournament Central, 3-person booths, MPO commentary teams and FPO commentary teams. So I mean, we've gotten to a point a couple times this year, especially once Tournament Central evolved into its current format, where we're like we need some more, talent here available. So, I think your job is safe, Terry, and maybe we just need to put you on the schedule a little bit more. But I mean, I could see the the advent of maybe 2 or 3 or 4 on-course commentators, which would be really cool for bigger events. And I'm sure that like as people, whether it's JomezPro folks or other players kind of move off tour, we'll kind of see who fills into spots. But yeah, there you go.
So some of the strengths of the JomezPro brand, we've always known as obviously the commentary. It's, as you mentioned, the graphics, things like follow flight and the color scheme and stuff like that. Jeff, I guess maybe this is more of a question for you. Maybe it's a question for Jonathan, but a lot of people look at that and say, wow, if we brought that over to live, unstoppable. And a lot of us behind the scenes know the limitations and whatnot. Not everybody does, but do we see some of the things that JomezPro does move over to live? Some things like I think of are the phenomenal pieces on players, like having something like that into the live broadcast. Or will we see the JomezPro brand, so to speak, kind of start to push into live probably for the better?
Well, we certainly would like to take any good parts, inefficiencies, collaborations that we can, and add them into Disc Golf Network. Already we have some shooters that are integrated in, and I think that in terms of features, as if we can work them in, that may be something that we're able to do. We definitely do some teases and some storytelling, and the more resources that we can have to add to live, the better. And I think that what folks don't understand is some of the importance of the tech stack we put together, the vendors that we work with, our resources in terms of cellular encoded transmission versus satellite and RF, using our REMI system, where we are in the world, that no matter what we incorporate over from Jomez, certain things aren't changing about live broadcasting and the technology that we're invested in currently. But in terms of the storytelling, camera work, some workflow stuff, there are things that can help make a difference. And we're not going to stop trying to invest in making the live broadcast better. And some of that may be through infrastructure, changes to our vendors, changes to our tech stack over time. And some of that may be incorporating our media team and the possibilities with the JomezPro media team to its fullest capacity. So yeah, I think that there's a real possibility to see, whether it's branding, whether it's feature pieces, whether, it's just, kind of creatively knocking our heads together and seeing what can be added, especially with an off season under our belt, going into 24. I think it's all good things to come.
First of all, I don't think Jeff knew the term REMI 2 years ago, so I'm very proud of you, Jeff.
Yeah, so somebody went to the NAB show. That a boy, we love it.
And then Jonathan, my question for you is, you talked about still obviously growing the Jomez brand, so to speak, but underneath the Pro Tour umbrella, do you have any interest in looking at the live side and like maybe learning a little bit more about that? You guys have dipped your toe into live, and for better or worse at times. I mean, we'll all say that, but and looking at that and being like, I think I could help out here. There are things I feel my strengths that maybe can come to the Pro Tour and specifically the live broadcast.
I mean, absolutely. That's what's so exciting about this is the opportunities that open up for basically every member of our team and members of the Pro Tour team to kind of have, that crossover, that collaborative spirit to say like, hey, like now that we're not necessarily running like parallel to each other and independent of one another, now that we are combined and it makes sense for us to have these conversations. That's what I'm most excited about, for not only for myself, but many of the members of the JomezPro team that have a lot to offer that can exceed beyond just like the JomezPro, company itself. So of course I'm always open to, I've handed off every job that I've ever had in this company up until I got to the point of CEO. So now that I could kind of hand off some of the administrative stuff, I'm excited to see exactly where, I can fit in best, and whether that's with a live broadcast or just the overarching, production, the direction we want to go that way. I'm certainly open to it. And yeah, that's what a lot of the really exciting benefits of stuff like this is that we have a really solid group of people on our team. And now that we can see how they can expand outside of just the company and the limitations that we had and serve disc golf on a bigger platform, that's a really good byproduct of something like this happening.
And I want to maybe address the elephant in the room, which is the Jomez Patreon. I know you guys talked a little bit about it on the Upshot. I want you guys to have the opportunity to talk about it here. Jeff, from your perspective, there's DGN subscribers and there's Patreon supporters for Jomez, and then there's probably a Venn diagram of both at some point. I think it's really funny that we've almost come full circle to when Steve Dodge had the Patreon for the Pro Tour way back when. But how do you see that kind of getting divided up? Because if coming from a viewer's perspective, if I'm a DGN supporter and I'm all in on live and this and that, and I see something over on the Jomez Patreon, I'm thinking like, well, how come I don't have access to that? Or vice versa. If I'm a Jomez Patreon supporter and I see things going on DGN, I should be like, well, how come I can't watch that too? How are you going to kind of balance that with the new, I will say, influx of subscribers?
Right. We've made a pretty clear distinction here, and I'm happy to have a chance to talk about it. When you're a DGN subscriber going forward, any early release content from Jomez that will be announced and developed, you'll have access to just as soon as anybody else, any JomezPro. So like content wise, you can subscribe and know that you'll get anything early enough, and no one will beat you to it. The pivot on the Patreon, and I'll let Jonathan talk a little bit more about it, is that, a lot of the feedback we got from the JomezPro team is that the Patreon were supportive of the JomezPro brand, and the benefits were a little bit secondary. It was like a tip jar. It was a way to, support, free coverage for being distributed and the hard work that the team was putting in. While there were benefits like early releases and some exclusive offers, the main thing was that it was supporting the JomezPro brand. And, we understand that, hey, like we see ourselves as an independent company as well. We're, under 50 employees into this acquisition. And, we're all out there trying really hard to be, operationally profitable, to make purses as large as possible, to build this stage for the best players in the world, the best venues in the world, and get that out there and grow the sport. So, that said, we don't have an active Patreon, because we don't necessarily expect people to say, hey, you're putting out paywalled content on the live and we're going to support you in Patreon. So, we understand that, the concept of supporting Jomez for some people that used it as a tip jar, may change. And, that's a realistic view, I think. I think for some people, they may say, hey, they're taking on FPO1. The Pro Tour is investing in this. There's free coverage still. And it is a worthy cause to still support. And to that, I would say we appreciate that. And I think it's a worthy cause myself. However, the pivot is that we are working with Jomez to really, add more value to the Patreon through exclusive merchandise on a monthly basis. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, you'll get every month, there'll be just an exclusive thing that only you can get. That's JomezPro. And the JomezPro team, Christina, Jesse, worked with our team to make sure that these benefits that I'm speaking to, made sense for the Patreon. The other thing is giveaways, monthly giveaways. The headliner here is that, we were able to kind of supercharge this month's giveaway and give a free gold pass, VIP gold pass to Pro Worlds. What I'm running it as the TD at Smuggler's Notch in Vermont on Labor Day weekend. And not only do you get the gold pass for 2, but it's all expenses paid. So you get 2 flights and a week-long stay at Smuggler's Notch Resort in a 2-bedroom condo. So it's like an awesome, chance to win if you're a Patreon subscriber. So other giveaways like that will be available. And then there's just more, interconnected efficiencies where, if you aren't a PDGA member and you're a JomezPro Patreon, you get 50% off the DGN You also, one time only, we're going to do free week of GA tickets on site to an event of your choice for certain Patreon members. So, we're just trying to be realistic and say, what can we do to give, the Jomez Patreon, through the ideas of the JomezPro team, more value and like an incentive to say, hey, I want to support this. Maybe it's not, the same type of support I envisioned when before this acquisition happened, but now I see a lot of value there, and I get a lot of access to exclusive merchandise, a lot of options at giveaways, and a lot of new benefits. And that's kind of derived from some of the team at Jomez and what they were recommending. So that's kind of the change. And Jonathan, I don't know if I left anything out, but that's my perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for outlining that. Honestly, there's as most people know, like we really uh, wouldn't be where we are today without the support of the patrons. And like we started that. I remember back when I didn't know for sure if we even wanted to do it. I didn't really know how it worked, and Ian Anderson convinced me to start when we started touring in 2017. And here we are, like just we've gotten so far off of the support of people that have been with us ever since, and the people that have come along over the years. And we understand now that with this news, people have those kind of questions, like Jeff said, like, well, what does it mean now that the tour is you guys? It kind of like says like, oh, you guys aren't independent anymore. Maybe you don't need that support. And the fact is, we definitely still do, but we also know like understanding like what that looks like and people having those questions. And now it's our job to give that value in ways that we haven't been able to before because of this. Like a direct benefit of this partnership is access to these events and giving experience type things, and just the type of um, value that we haven't really been able to provide before because we didn't really have the manpower to give more than just an exclusive release here or a discount code there, and just the tip jar aspect. So now, like I said, we've put many hours. Christina and Jesse on our team, and of course members of the Disc Golf Pro Tour team, put many hours like over the last week just making sure that this all looked right and that it was approached appropriately, and making sure that we could kind of ease those concerns, and saying if you were on the fence about how you want to go, from this moment on, knowing now that we're providing that value to the patrons in ways that we haven't before, like that's our job to retain those people or to get new people in. And so, I feel really good about the approach that we have from this moment forward.
So, talking about the content, actually, a lot of people, most people know Jomez for post production, final or not final round, but all the rounds, next day, all day. But you guys do a lot more. You have practice rounds, you have putting game, you have multiple podcasts. Are we assuming all of that stuff is staying the same and coming over? And I guess on top of that, Jonathan, is there any ideas that you have, like right now you're sitting with me, even if you can't share them, that you're just like, awesome, I now am free to maybe try this? Like, from your perspective, or maybe Jeff can answer as far as the products that are coming over. And I guess the one big thing that I've heard from a lot of people is, are we going to see a Two Hot Geese practice round?
Yeah, I mean um I think I mentioned this in the upshot interview, that last year, because of the challenges that we had faced, and because of how adamant I was about retaining certain things in the company, that we did have to pull back quite a bit on the extra content stuff and the other projects that we wanted to. And we were still able to get things like Beyond Disc Golf and Putting Game, but there was still so many other things that we wanted to do that we couldn't. And as a direct result of this partnership and the access to resources, and just being able to finally, like I said, like before, focusing on our strengths, we will be able to finally pursue so much more than we were able to previously. We're going to continue to elevate the coverage like we have, and basically doing MPO and FPO next day. That's a direct result of this partnership. And then being able to now pursue or projects that we have wanted to, but we weren't necessarily able to. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. And I'm very excited for what's to come, and to be able to finally, talk about that more as this is basically just day one as everyone else is concerned, but
everyone
there's
wants it
still
to be
things
day
in the works.
130. I mean, everyone
Yeah,
wants to know what's
and we'll
gonna
get there
happen.
before we know it. We'll get there before we know it. But I assure you that there will be a lot more coming, that we're able to, have the support from the tour to pursue things like that, to provide, even more to the fans.
I want to step back, and I know we're getting late, and I think we've covered most things, but I do want to quickly step back. This year we saw GK Pro now his feature is more focused on doing their skins match. Obviously, Jonathan, you guys have jumped in to do the FPO coverage. Was there negotiating, or was there any kind of fight per se from the GK Pro guys about retaining the FPO coverage, in the sense that they had worked really hard to help generate even more interest for FPO? They kind of, put that on their back for the last couple of years. I think every one of us in this room or on this show know FPO coverage is not generally profitable. I mean, if we're just being very blunt about it, it is not profitable. I know that maybe better than anyone. And GK Pro had really picked up and had done a phenomenal job with it. And then I guess that's where I say is, was there any shift in momentum from those guys? And Jonathan, why would you want to take on a non-profitable, scenario in FPO coverage? I think there's a question in there somewhere.
Yeah, I can start. Then I have one questions for Jonathan for sure at the end. But with the GK Pro predictions, it was made clear to us from them that they were looking to move in a different direction with where they put their time, energy, and resources.
Okay.
I think that I would repeat what you said about, getting momentum behind it, bringing all of their resources to bear, to create a great product, and, kind of developing a following. And even, with that effort, I think that you're right. The coverage needed to be subsidized, and it's really, on the event or the tour in this case to say that this is important to us, and we want to provide post-production coverage of FPO. I mean, this year we have FPO2 coverage, and that is a step beyond not, kind of being profitable, I think. But
shout out to Ace Run, by the way, who are usually watching.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say shout out as well, because they basically dove headfirst in a way maybe in more reminiscent of 2014 teams just jumping in and trying to figure it out, or something like that, right? We are, as a tour, committed to having that covered, and working with GK Pro was fantastic in getting that coverage done. They were great in fulfilling it, but we understood that they were a little kind of searching for a new identity and moving maybe in a new direction, and wanting to focus on different things, which coincided really well timing wise with kind of where we were at in these negotiations. And, I'll just take this chance to say that, doing this deal was very complex, and it was a long process, longer than any of us wanted it to be. It took a lot of work, time, energy, and money just to complete the deal. I think that meant around the January, February time, we were at a place actually where we were very confident we would get to this point. So we worked together to say, let's operate as if, and look at this season holistically. And it just made sense to, kind of try to take the next step forward with FPO coverage. I am pretty confident that at the end of this year, we'll look and say, hey, this is sustainable coverage at this point in time. So I think that was my part of the question.
And Jonathan, Is that daunting? Is that deflating? Is that exciting? Is it a new challenge? Like, how do you look at, waking up and saying we're going to take on FPO coverage, which is traditionally just a lot less viewership
A
and
lot more shots too, usually.
more editing to do, but more so just a lot less viewership. And it maybe in some ways doesn't feel as rewarding, or maybe it feels more. I don't know how you look at it, but what's that like to take that on, and then maybe talk a little bit about some of the numbers you have or haven't seen. But describe kind of that process or that internal motivation or otherwise.
Yeah, honestly, whenever Jeff first brought that up at the early part of this year, I immediately was like, okay, like I think that this could work, and I took it to Kevin, who is like our production manager, and he took it to the crew, and it was a resounding yes. They were so excited that there was even going to be the opportunity that we were even discussing it, because I didn't know how they were going to, we weren't just asking them, hey, we're going to shift to FPO. We were saying, hey, we're going to do both MPO and FPO in a 24-hour period, 3 to 4 times a week, 5 if you count something like Worlds. Like, how insane is that to ask that of these people? But it's exactly the kind of team we have. They love a challenge. They love the FPO field, as much as they love the MPO field. And they thought that, it was an honor to be able to pick that up and to put our touch on it because of people like you, Terry, and Ace Run Pro and GK that have gone before and done all the hard work to even get it to this point, so that we weren't going to come in and say, oh, look at us, like we're going to take over and everything's going to be great now. No, it was because of the work that you guys have done in the years prior, where we couldn't do it more than maybe once or twice a year because we couldn't commit to doing it full time because of what you said, because of it is somewhat of a liability to take that on, and it takes some support to even accomplish that in ways that MPO doesn't necessarily have, the same challenges. But yeah, it was all about just the being excited about the opportunity and knowing that it was going to take a lot of work to still execute it. It took Kevin and Sam over at the Pro Tour, many weeks to talk about exactly what was going to happen and how the day to day was going to look and how many hours everything was going to take, and making sure that we could do it and promise that, so that when it came time to announce it, we were committed and saying, yes, once we show up in Las Vegas, this is for sure going to happen. And then, of course, getting in touch with the commentators and managing schedules, we now are doing that with 4 to 5 people instead of just 2 to 3 people. And basically the Airbnb is just like a revolving door now,
Mm-hmm.
because there's going to be, the FPO comes in after their round, and as soon as they're done, then the MPO might come in the evening, or they might come in the morning, depending on where we are and what the schedules are, because time zones shift everything. Like, there's always something, that's going to change exactly what we're doing. But they've just taken the challenge and just knocked it out of the park, and I'm so proud of every single person that has anything to do, with that in this company, to making sure that has been successful. And of course, like I said before, this would absolutely 100% would not have been possible, for one, if it wasn't for the tour giving us the opportunity in the first place, but two, giving us access to certain resources and helping us ensure that this is something that we could take on, because we knew that it's going to take some time for it to become profitable. But it's a risk and a challenge that we were willing to take as a part of this new partnership, because we're willing to put in, our team is willing to put in the time it takes round the clock at a tournament, and promoting it on social media and getting exactly what needs to be done to showcase the best FPO players that we have. And I'm just so stoked in just as the most recent example, showing Cat Merch's story. Like, you couldn't have planned that out. Like, the fact that we did that profile piece on her in round one, and she was being very vulnerable about what disc golf meant to her and her journey, and to see going to a playoff against Haley King, and then just bursting into tears as she taps in and gets her first Elite Series win. Like, this is exactly why we're very proud to have this responsibility to broadcast that to the world. And I know that on the live side, you guys all felt the same way, because these are the stories that we're here to tell. This is exactly why we do what we do, no matter how tough it can get out there. And we have years like we had last year, and we drag out every part of this this agreement that we worked on for many months to make sure it's exactly right so that we can be on the ground to do exactly that. And that's what I'm so excited about, is like there's more of that to come, because the players are doing their part in, elevating their skill levels and seeing younger players come up. And our crew is doing our part, and the fans are doing their part by watching and giving us feedback. So I'm just getting really pumped now that, that we're talking about exactly like why we're doing what we're doing. And of course, on the MPO side, seeing Calvin be so dominant, it's just being there on the ground and having, it's not as much of a job as it is like a privilege. And it sounds so corny, but it really is, because we have a front row seat to these moments, and we have people that are very passionate about what they do to all come together, and the tour to even give us the opportunity to be on the ground at an event in the first place, and the players and the media come together to make it all happen. It's just like it's such a privilege, and it's just an opportunity that I couldn't imagine, having without the crazy journey that we've been on up to this point.
And this will be my last question. I know we're getting late here, and it kind of involves lead card coverage. Some of us have known about what's going on behind the scenes for a few months now. There's been rumors of it, at least behind the scenes, for the employees and the contractors and stuff. And so over the last couple weeks or even months, we've seen a lot of chase card winners coming out. And so there's been wonderful, funny memes, the Jomez gatekeeper guy, memes and whatnot about how, people are like, oh, Jomez has to be hating this with all the, the chase card things. And I don't think you've even commented on it, Jonathan, at all. But are we going to, first of all, I guess you can, a lot of us were just like, yeah, I don't think Jonathan really cares that much right now that the chase card, that the guys over at Gatekeeper are getting their shine. But are we going to see, now that, Jomez is part of the DGPT, are we going to start seeing a slight change in post-production, where maybe we'll include more chase card stuff if that happens? Because part of what a lot of people say is like, man, I wish Jomez was covering the top 2 or 3 or 4 cards, because we don't know where the winners are coming from anymore. But we also all of us respect what Gatekeeper is doing. So Jeff, maybe you can answer it. Jonathan, maybe you can answer it. Are we going to see any sort of more mingling of footage?
Yeah, so I'll say that this is a great problem to have. I love it. It doesn't, like, of course, it's kind of a bummer to not have the full coverage of when somebody comes off the chase card, but I couldn't be happier for disc golf in those moments, because it's just like, okay, this is another challenge for us, because we started with one camera and then we needed 2, because it was like, wait, now I can't see around the corner in the woods or something, or they're throwing further, and now, one camera is not good enough. And then 3, because we want to see the reactions, and 4, because we want to see slow motion replays. This is just another step in the evolution of disc golf coverage. And this is exactly why, what gets us excited to get to have these challenges presented to us, knowing that the product that you see now is not the product that we're happy and content with, and that we're going to stick with for even the next year or 2. And it's exactly those types of things when they happen. And eventually we're going to start seeing that happen in the FPO field as they get better and the fields get larger. So, and then having this partnership in place, and knowing that the tour, has other camera people, and Gatekeeper is out there as well, and they do an incredible job. And like you said, I'm so stoked that they have those opportunities, and we are more than happy to direct people to that whenever we say that so-and-so won from the chase card, go watch the entire round over there. So there's going to be a lot of conversations had as far as like what the next evolution of coverage is. But of course, a more complete coverage would be ideal on the post-production side, because the live side already does that, because you guys have been doing that, and you guys have been adding more cameras, and you even have a camera that can go to the 4th card, to catch when somebody's, James is shooting 17 down or something. It's just like, it's just one of those things. So to answer that question, it's a welcome challenge. It's something that gets me really excited, and it's something that we continue to keep. It just keeps us on our toes, to say like, okay, what's the next evolution? How do we, give people the most complete version, of the story?
Jeff, is that difficult to balance with someone like Gatekeeper, where clearly they're going to want, like, oh, the winner came off our card, let's, this is our precious diamond, we might not be able to get lead card, but this is them. Is that difficult for you to balance those kind of pressures?
Well, I mean, last year, Gatekeeper and Jomez came to us and just checked that it was okay that they did that themselves. And I think that happened like at 2021 Worlds and at select tournaments in the past. So, what that says to me is that, it's not a protective, oh no, like they're going to highlight what's happened at certain moments on the chase card that's relevant to the lead card outcome. I think that the chase card coverage is compelling to fans that want to see the entire card and want to see what happened. And so, there's, even if there is some action cut in, which I would like to see, to answer your question, I'd like to see more sharing there and cut-ins and telling a fuller story, and we'll see how that evolves. We don't have specific plans, but I think it makes sense. Makes too much sense not to consider and look at. But from the collaboration Jomez and Gatekeeper have had in the past, I think that it's something that can be worked out collaboratively, and that if people want to see shot by shot, it's because you want to go and see every shot of that player and what happened on that card. But certainly it is precious for someone like Gatekeeper to have that footage, and that's not going anywhere for them. And I think that they'll, even if there is more storytelling on lead, it's not going to affect the fact that if a winner comes off a chase, they're going to see more viewership.
And I promise this isn't a question. This is more of a shout out to Mo, to yell at him. Like, we now that there's more resources, we need the hypercut of the James Conrad round from the 5th card. Just James Conrad. Like, now that we're getting more resources, these type of things will hopefully be available, because if someone's going to want to go back and like, holy crap, James shot a 17, and that's great, point him to the live coverage. But let's be honest, I'm not going to want to, even myself who loves live coverage, who's made my bones on it, I don't want to sit and skip through like, okay, there's a shot from James, there's one. We should be leveraging this stuff to be able to put out on the Patreon or the DGN like the highlight of James Conrad's round, holes 2 through whatever, when we realized he was going to shoot a crazy 17 down.
Yeah, he's got to tell us ahead of time, though.
It would help
we
out.
caught him on hole 12 because everybody starts shooting well.
The
on
good
that
thing
course.
about that is this is not even close to the last time it's going to happen, and the further we continue to evolve and grow, the more cameras we're going to have out there, to the point where we'll probably have the top 5 cards covered. It's just the natural progression of these things. Think about, golf does that, and they certainly didn't do that at the beginning, and we are still in our infancy, honestly. Like, we're still in the very early stages of disc golf media, and it's great because we're making the most of what we have access to, but it's only going to get better for us, and we're only going to be able to find more. And it just so happens that the players are also continuing to get even better. So it's just, I think it's just a great time to be, in disc golf. And I think it's very exciting. And it, like I said before, it's these types of challenges that keep us, wanting to continue evolving, because it's not always going to be perfect. And it's just one of those things that it kind of builds up, that character in all of us that want us to continue to fight through and to continue grinding, so that we can get to those, that next level, and just be proud of where we've come from and where we are now, and just looking forward to what lies ahead of us.
This will, I think, be maybe my last question. It's kind of random compared to a lot of the others, but fair to say that JomezPro likely will not be at any non-elite series or non-majors and pro tour events. I guess, is that a fair statement? Do you guys have any, inclination to go do post-production on a different A tier or a different some other event? Is that kind of by the wayside now, or just something that just simply there's not enough time and resources for?
I mean, I wouldn't want to take over any more than you still need content for your channel, Terry. So
exactly.
He's worried over. He's shaking.
Yeah, his face got even more red than it was before.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like
you're not going to be at this event next week, are you?
Yeah. Don't give us any ideas. Don't name any names, Terry. No,
I know. I'm sick of discovering all these great events, these great courses, and these great communities. And the next thing you know, the Pro Tour's there hosting an event the next year, taking my post-production
Terry,
away.
You're such a trailblazer.
Jeez, you guys keep stealing
awesome,
it.
Don't blow up his head.
No, but honestly, we do. I'll speak really quickly, and Jeff can chime in. But we really do have our plate full with just the slate of everything we have and doing double coverage. But another one of these things, like we're always going to be looking to see like what could be next. Do we add Silver Series next year? Do we go to other A tiers? Because it's just one of those things. But as it stands now, it just as quickly as things have evolved, we already are asking a lot of our crew, and but the good thing is it is still at double the amount of coverage that we've ever done before. Even with the tour continuing to add more events and making them the highest level events possible. So we wouldn't be able to do that if they weren't continuing to do that year after year and pushing and doing the research on where to change a venue or how to change a course. Jeff was just out there today on at Smugs, making changes, for that exact reason. So that's why, we love that, because we don't necessarily have to put in the time to think about things like that. So that as long as when we show up, we do what we do because they've gone ahead. And of course, Terry went the year before, wherever it was.
I was just thinking, one of the things I'm really excited about, some of the JomezPro hole previews are some of the best in the industry, like the overhead shots and the bouncing lines, like getting access to that in live, like, because those are all pre-produced. So being able to bring those in, and I mean, shout out to the drone previews and what we have now, but just the additional resources that live is going to have. And I'm greedy that way, but it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
No, it's all a good thing. Like we're not really in a position to be greedy. We should be in a position to be grateful that we have access to the things that we do have, because it's all going to just help us all, have a better product for the fans.
Awesome. Well, I guess I'll ask, is there any other final things, parting shots, or
shout out to your sponsors. That's what we always say.
Sponsors, or maybe any other things you'd love to dispel, any things we didn't bring up where it's like, oh yeah, I saw this today and it's just dead wrong, and here's why. Just basically open floor of anything else that you want to address or not before we let you both go.
I'll just thank. Sorry, I'll go. Just thank the team, our team that helped get the deal to the finish line. Want to thank Sunstein, who is a great partner on the legal end. Both Steve and Tom with Sunstein were awesome. Our board of directors and advisors, Margaret, Michael, Pat Govang, and Todd, of course, were all instrumental in put a lot of time, hard work, and energy into getting the deal done. And as I mentioned before, it was a lot. It was time consuming and hard work, both sides to get to this point. And collaboration and continual improvement are core values of the tour, and this checks both those boxes. And that's where we're coming from, is trying to elevate the tour, the Disc Golf Network, and build that stage even higher. So didn't see anything I wanted to spell per se, Terry, but just put out our
haven't looked hard enough.
I'll text you some rumors tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, well, we can do the after show or something. But, and it's not that even if I read everything, I wouldn't want to respond to it. I just will state our intent, coming from our heart and the truth of the matter for us. And we're excited about the future, and just excited to work more closely with Jonathan and the Jomez team, really hand in hand, and taking advantage of some of the opportunities we all have in the future. So, just looking forward with optimism.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I also want to thank everyone over at the Pro Tour team, like you said, Todd and Michael and you, Jeff, and so many other people that kind of plays to exactly what I was talking about. The benefit of this is just a huge support team they have over there, and helping us get through this in ways that, this is obviously a very new process for us. We had no idea what to expect, and they were very instrumental in helping us, keep our heads on straight when it felt overwhelming to see exactly what was ahead of us. And of course, on our side with myself and Juan and our team leaders and our certain departments, and of course every employee that was very very gracious and patient with us while we went through this process, knowing that like this is going to happen, but we can't exactly have everything happen all at once. And of course, they were very patient and, getting to the point where we could make this announcement. And yeah, it's been in a very memorable experience. It's been pretty insane, like to think about how long ago this started to where we finally got to announce it, at this point, but knowing that it was all worth it because now we can get to work. Like we already have been at work, but now that people know, and I know they're going to be paying attention, and there can be drama all over the place and people can say whatever they want, but now it's up to us to, to put to put our work and let our work speak for us, because interviews can only do so much, and really it's just time to put that and let that speak for us, and show people exactly the type of benefits that can come from something like this and how it can really help disc golf continue to grow.
Well, I look forward to the future JomezPro documentary about the JomezPro acquisition.
Yeah.
That, it's going to be phenomenal. I guarantee.
I want to see the Smashbox documentary. You guys, I want to see that one.
Well, I'll tell you this: there'll be a spot where a lot of us would intersect, Jonathan, and there's a few years there that could be a lot of fun. There's a lot of stories.
It could just be it'll just be the overall disc golf media documentary. I guess we'll just have to do that because there's a lot to go over. But it's just been awesome, being alongside you guys. I don't know how many times I've been on the podcast, but it's just cool if I was to go back and just to see where we were in every single, version of disc golf media, every time I've been on for one reason or another. Like I love just being able to reconnect with you guys because I don't get to do that as much, but it's been an honor to have, gotten this to this point. We're all still alive. We don't have as many gray hairs as we could, and so it's awesome. It's such a treat to be able to come on and kind of reconnect with you guys, and just I look forward to the next time and whatever it is that we get into next. So thank you guys for all your hard work as well, because you have a lot to do with things like this happening.
Well, as thanks obviously to you too as well, Jonathan, because I truly believe that the Pro Tour is better because all of us, whether it's Smashbox or JomezPro or GK or Gatekeeper, just UDisc, like we've all had the fortunate time to come together at the right time and grow the tour to what it is now. And I look forward to being able to steal a lot of your assets from the post-production stuff and live, and it's gonna be a great. I'll tell. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
All right, guys. Thank you for the insights, the details. As much as you could share, and as you said, just the incredible amount of work it took to get yourselves to this point, to help get the Pro Tour, Jomez, the network, everyone to this point to where we are, and we're all going to look forward to what this has in store for us here, not only in the remainder of 2023, but as we move forward in the future. So, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Take care.
All right, you too.
See ya.
Thanks to Jonathan and Jeff for joining the show. Much appreciated. And I understand from a outsider's perspective how this can be scary. I truly do. I've read a lot of the comments, but what I really lean upon is just telling people to look at the Pro Tour's history. Like the last 3-4 years. At what point has anybody, I'm sure there is, but have you had a real reason to worry? Like, what has the Pro Tour ever done anything to really dissuade your trust? And I don't feel there's any really big glaring thing. So what I'll say is from a viewer's perspective, and working with both of these guys, but more so Jeff Spring, trust goes a long way. And I trust what the Pro Tour, I know the guys that work on the Pro Tour. We know them very well. I understand where they're coming from, and I think that we just need to kind of look at it and say, give them our trust to start out with until they, for whatever reason, break that, which I don't think they will do, but start out with trust.
Yeah, I mean, I trust them more than you.
I don't blame you.
All right. Again, it's been a wild day because this obviously has been such a large announcement at such a scale, and I'll if you've listened somehow this long, hopefully you have all the answers that you need overall. But if you somehow missed anything, not only was there a press release and an article then written about it, Ultraworld has done a podcast at this point as we're talking, but then also there was a Q&A on top of it that kind of addressed some of the things, plenty of things that we didn't even touch on as well. So it's all out there. It's all available. And I'm sure if you have questions, there'll probably be more follow-ups or details released of anything else that somehow may or may not linger. But for the most part,
I
feel like most of it has been discussed and has been now talked over. So.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that hasn't been touched on between all of the different social medias and such. So, Terry, there was an actual event this past weekend, an exciting event.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, you got to comment on it. You probably know more about it than I do.
Yes, I do.
Let's start
Way
with
more.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Let's start with the Jonesboro Open, the Played Against Sports Jonesboro Open, powered by Prodigy.
They've had that name for a while. It's still long.
It is still long. It's not as long as some, so I'll give them that.
Yes, but trying to fit it all in to do my best to recognize all the representation is not as easy as some would think.
Yep.
It doesn't, all of that, no matter who it is and what the words are, the quantity of those words don't all just flow off your tongue.
Correct. And you can always look at when an event has a long name, when in the live broadcast, the bug in the upper left
has just like 3 characters.
Has to either abbreviate or it's just cut off. I think at one point I just saw it like, I think it just said like Again Sports or something, Jonesboro Open. But winning on the FPO side and letting out maybe the most visceral yell I have maybe ever heard. Cat Merch after winning. It was emotional.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. Cat played very, very well. She went into a playoff with Haley King and won, I believe, on the very first hole.
Mm-hmm.
And then proceeded to just scream, like just let out all this. I don't know if I don't want to say, it probably wasn't frustration, but just emotion she'd probably been holding in. This was her first Elite Series win. And it showed. Her mom was there. There's a really cute moment with her holding the trophy and turning around, and then just you see her recognize her mom, who she probably knew was there, but in the big hubbub, blanked out of her mind, and it was almost like oh, you're here, even though she probably knew she was there. So congratulations to Cat Merch first and foremost. What a great showing, just well played all around. Good 3 rounds. Haley King played 2 really good rounds and 1 not so good round in the second round, which is really what led us to this playoff. In third place, a name that some people maybe don't know. Terry, you and I know this name. And if you're paying attention to maybe a little bit further down the FPO leaderboard this year, you would know Aria Castorita. She was also the Rookie of the Year last year. Aria making her first podium at the Disc Golf Pro Tour events, shooting a 19 under par, 3 strokes behind. At one point, she was right there with the other 2. There was a 3-way tie.
Yeah, she had the outright lead even.
She had the outright lead at one point during the final round. And unfortunately, just took a double bogey on hole 12. And at that point, it became less and less likely. And then 2 more bogeys. But ultimately, Aria showing that she has pretty good distance. Mm-hmm. And her I always knew her putt has always been pretty solid. Mm-hmm. Just an all-around solid player. And it was really exciting to see Aria have that chance. I believe that was her dad that was on the bag for her. Aria is one of 3 sisters that play. There's Melody and...
Give you a hint. Her other sister's name...
crap, I can't remember. I know Melody...
Also plays in FPO. Her other sister's name is the same name.
Yeah, that's not going to help me, Terry.
We're tied for first. But lost.
Haley?
Yes.
Is Haley Castrita?
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
Spelled
okay.
Spelled
differently. Spelled differently.
Correctly.
Okay.
Spelled differently.
Fourth place, Holland Hanley. Holland was right up there for a little while in the mix of it, but ends up about 5 strokes behind first place, Cat Merch. Fifth place, a name we really haven't mentioned much at all this year, at least in this aspect, Evelina Salonen. Evelina, I think she made a social media post about how happy she was with her play. And this is from someone who, I believe first round, missed 8 or 9 circle 1 putts. Just in the first round. but clearly turned it around. We all know this tends to be a thrower's course. So if there was an event that really set up for Evelina, it was this one. She's always phenomenal tee to green. It's just once she gets inside that circle, all bets are off. But ultimately, Evelina, a good way to see her off. She's going back over to Europe for a few weeks, probably through the European Open, and then she will, I believe, join back up on the tour. But ultimately, congratulations to Evelina Salonen on a well-played event, taking 5th place. 6th place, Kristen Tatar. A total, I say let down as in people are let down, but this is the week where you just come off of of the major win at the Champions Cup. She's going home as well to Estonia. It was not surprising maybe to see a down week from her, and even though she made a run of, she went birdie, 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 double, birdie, birdie to finish out the round. There was even some thoughts at one point after her first 3 holes where she went birdie, birdie, birdie. People were thinking like, does she have a chance to catch up? And
yeah,
it was I don't want to say scary, but there was the thought was in the back of the head. 7th place, Ella Hansen. 8th place, Henna Blumros. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that for somebody. 9th place, Heidi Lane. And 10th place, Missy Gannon. So congratulations to our top 10 FPO. Terry, do you have any takeaways from the FPO field for this past weekend at Jonesboro?
No, the only one of the things that I'll say is I'll just reiterate that it was so great to see Aria perform the way that she did. I feel like, I don't want to say I feel like it was glossed over, because we certainly talked about her and we obviously covered her during rounds 2 and 3. So I just want that to be a real statement, because when she was vying for the win and there was only a handful of holes left and she was very much in contention or had the outright lead all the way up until, at 11 or 12 up until that point, when she was sitting on the lead, she was at that point the youngest person that we would have seen winning on the Elite Series at just 17 years old. And obviously she didn't go on to win, we get it, but it just, for some reason, and maybe it's because we haven't seen her a ton in media and because she's not flashy, so to speak. She obviously is a solid player, and it was just awesome to see. I don't want to say break out of her shell, but she looks a little more comfortable than normal.
That's true.
Even out there. And that's what I love to see. Was super excited about it. Again, I will brag that I've known her family now for a number of years, and this goes all the way back to Junior Worlds a few years ago when we were in Emporia, and then seeing what she's done on the Next Gen tour, and just seeing the entire family. Watching all 3 of her other 2 sisters play as well, and the story I briefly told was that at one point I had a conversation even with her dad about filming and footage and types of cameras, and the fact that he's got footage, her dad had footage of her first throws ever when she was 3 years old or 4 years old. Like, how awesome is that, in the big picture? And he has probably hundreds of rounds of footage. So when the documentary does get made for the 1, 2, or 3 of those sisters that play, hopefully he'll be able to cash in on a few dollars for some of those licensing rights on that footage. So absolutely just awesome to see. Congratulations. 3rd place. Yes, the playoff, of course, took a ton of the excitement, understandably. Yes, ultimately the home state girl Kat won. So there's all these great stories.
Back-to-back home state winners. We saw Georgia last week at Champions Cup with Isaac.
Which, so plenty could say that's just pure coincidence at this point.
Could be.
Most certainly. I mean, then you say, well, we saw Vinny, who it doesn't matter. He wins wherever he goes, or can win, or has won, or just likes to keep winning here.
He certainly likes Jonesboro, apparently.
So it is what it is. But awesome to see all of that. And then the other quick kind of side note on the weekend was very much, of course, the unique, unfortunate scenario of Haley King and her misplay.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, even that night we went back and looked at a little bit of footage. I'm personally not positive how it exactly happened, other than thinking Haley went up to check her lie to see where she was. And at that point is maybe when she dropped her other pink disc. She dropped it down by her side, like, oh, I don't need this. Me or my caddy will get it later. And because then she went and ultimately played from that, which
because I believe they were both pink discs.
They were both pink discs, and even more coincidentally, she played from the worst lie. Like, to prove there wasn't an intentional cheating there. Definitely the putt that was 20 feet closer was the much higher percentage, more likely putt. And so it was just really interesting to see that play out. At first, well, let me be very clear. I didn't realize that that's what she had done. I didn't realize it right away. I saw her putt, and then what felt like just a second later, I saw her putt again. And I'm like, wow. And in my head, I was thinking, man, she got a nasty rollback off the putt. She putted, and then it rolled back. Like, I feel like she should be right next to the basket. She just hit it, hit the basket, connected with it, and wow, it took a nasty roll. And then when she putt again, I still didn't. That's what I was thinking. So it wasn't until a few moments later, I don't know if it was production or if it was just the hubbub on the course, is when we then realized that it had happened. And again, still not really sure how it happened. Now,
I was going to say right away when I watched that, and I happened to be watching, I didn't watch a ton this weekend, but I happened to be watching right there. She went up and threw from the not good lie, from the wrong lie. And then when she went up to right in front, immediately I thought, oh my God, I knew right away she played from the wrong lie. And my initial thought was, which we've seen in the past before, I thought she marked her disc, picked it up, and then tossed it behind her, went back to her bag or something, and then came back to the wrong lie. That's what I thought at first. But looking at the footage, that is not exactly how it happened, because
her other disc was still sitting.
Her other disc was still sitting there, but that's what I initially thought she did. I knew she played from her. I knew it was from her disc, the wrong lie. I just didn't realize how it happened. And I think you're right. I think she did just maybe drop it and then walk back, knowing she did. Oh, I don't need this disc, and I'm going to grab a different one. But
yeah, and at first I thought, well, did she play from someone else's disc? I'm like, and then in my head I was thinking, wait,
nobody was around her.
Well, and who's she playing with? Who else is on her card? She's playing with Aria, who has a different sponsor and would have been, in theory, some form of Latitude or Trilogy disc. Also on the card was Missy, I think, at the time. And Missy, and she would have had a different branded disc. So I was just trying to think about how that could have unfolded or what took place, and then to realize it was hers and it was a pink one.
Ouch.
I can understand that. Now, let's be honest, and I know somebody on the board just said, well, someone made a mistake under pressure. No idea how that could happen. I'm not like mad or screaming that, oh my God, what an unbelievable mistake. I'm not saying that.
I don't think it had anything to do with pressure.
I don't think it was the pressure. I think she was also not in a good frame of mind. And it was a byproduct of her frustrations. And maybe it could have happened on any other hole as well, where she was not frustrated. But I think it's also a very fair statement to say she was agitated, irritated, frustrated with her own play up until that point. And so it was a much easier slip of the mind at that point. I think if she's 6 under through 6, I'm guessing that's and that's nothing more than a guess.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing she's a little more dialed and focused. And in this case, she was super frustrated, which I can understand. And then this just added on to it, compounded the mistake. So that's what I'll say about it. It was interesting that it happened. It's kind of an interesting teachable moment for the rest of the world, obviously, at the same time, because you could see if it's happening to our top professionals, it could happen at any given tournament. It's a good reminder to have your rule book or have access to the rules always, so that if you do need to look something up, it's right there. That's exactly why the PDGA officials test is open book, so to speak. You're not you can take it anywhere, anytime,
because you always have an open book.
Because you always have an open book. You have those opportunities to go look up the rule. They're really testing to see how good are you at researching and finding the rules. So, and for whomever said it a few minutes or hours earlier, like that whole cost her the tournament. No, I mean, you could say that literally of any stroke. Her not throwing a good tee shot on 10, the first playoff hole, you could say cost her the tournament. Her, that happened in the middle of round 2, and every stroke does count. Every stroke matters. But
but every mistake, in theory, cost her the event. Every single one of them. Pick any one of them.
Anyone.
So there's, I don't know.
So anyway, it was something we don't see every day. Now here's the
if that was
coincidence.
I'll say if that was a 2-stroke penalty for some reason and she lost by 1, I would say yes, that maybe cost her. But
it happened on the 7th hole of round 2.
I understand that, but because it's a 1-stroke penalty, and you could pick 1 stroke out of anywhere. Again, if you compound them into 2,
29 more holes she played after that.
I understand that, Terry.
I just don't firmly believe in that. She does that on the last hole. It's still just all the strokes still matter. You do it on the last hole where you were going to be tied, and does it feel different? Maybe at that point, sure. But if you miss a free throw in the first minute of the game and you miss a free throw in the third quarter, it's the same 1 point.
That's what I'm saying. 1 point.
It feels different. It feels different, I guess, is something I do understand. But it's the same.
If you miss
the same.
If you miss a wide open layup for a win for 2 points, is that different then? Like you literally, we've seen in the NBA, you've seen that in the last second, player goes up, just goes for a rebound or goes for an easy layup for the win, just yanks it. Is that what cost you the game?
People
say
so. 1 and 2 points in basketball and disc golf.
There's just a difference. All right, let's talk about the MPO. Before
that, was there a coincidence? Just nothing more than raw coincidence that there was a misplay involving Haley at JomezPro
again
3 years ago?
Yeah, it's a coincidence. Because it happened
kind of crazy
between her and Paige Pierce.
We just don't see them happen often, or things of this nature.
We don't.
Then it is Haley. It's the same course. It's the same tournament. Different scenarios.
Different discs.
Different discs, but just a different hole. I get all of that. It just was a little bit eerie.
It's a coincidence.
Because how many other misplays have you seen in disc golf that you remember?
On the live broadcast, very few. Like just a couple. Like I said, where someone, I can't remember who it was, but someone tossed the disc behind them, and then went back to their bag, came back up, and then played from that tossed disc.
That happening,
I can't remember who it was, but I do.
That's why I say it's just kind of crazy.
It just doesn't happen very often.
All right, now we can move on to MPO.
Let's talk about MPO. Kelvin Jonesboro Heimberg wins this one. I believe that's his middle name. I think it's Jonesboro, which is why he wins a lot there. He ended up beating Eagle, which is funny because Eagle ended up tying for second, but by 3 strokes going into the last hole, they were tied after some amazing back and forth play between the two of them. Kelvin hitting that Eagle putt on 16 was cold, I'll say. Not just because Kelvin tends to be a little bit robotic and cold during coverage, but in general, it was a phenomenal putt. In a high-pressure situation. It was only, I'm going to put that in quotes, about 45 feet downhill. The way Kelvin putts, he doesn't usually miss left or right. He usually misses high or low. So the miss, in theory, the worst miss for him would have been slightly high and skip off the top. And then you go into the sand or even worse, maybe into the water or behind some trees. But the way Vinny was putting, it was damn near dead center. It was the most solid putt I've seen in a long time. Especially on those baskets, which we saw a little bit of give and take on those for some people. I saw 1 or 2 that I was like, that was a 50-50. So take that for what it's worth. I hate to blame equipment ever, though, because everyone plays on the same equipment. Everyone knows, understands. I'm always a big proponent of saying you need to know the equipment you're playing on and adjust appropriately. If you know these baskets don't catch well, middle high, got to hit a middle low. If you know that there's a good spot on the right side or left side, that's where you got to be aiming. But I will say we saw a few. Those chains are stiff. I'm going to just leave it at that. That combined with the wind that we saw made for a tough situation. But on the final hole of the round, Eagle, Kelvin pipes one right up the center. Great throw. Eagle takes the route that he's most comfortable with, which is the giant hyzer, misses his line, catches some trees, falls out of bounds, and at that point it's game. There's no way that Eagle can really catch up short of a literal 600-foot miracle. Eagle probably could have at that point played it safe and taken a second on his own, but he went for another big shot, and it didn't pan out that well for him, quite literally. And I believe he went OB again.
Mm-hmm.
and ends up taking a 7 to drop down, 3 strokes.
Oh, those rating points he's given away.
I know. And all the money. Think of all the money, Terry. To tie for second with Ben Calloway, who had a great weekend. And in general, has had a couple good weekends recently, other than crashing his car. I would say that's probably not a great weekend. And Isaac Robinson, who, again, has had a couple good weeks, winning a major. And I'll say what we said about Kristen Tatar about having a letdown weekend. On the other podcast, on the Skip Ace podcast, I said that Isaac Robinson, I would not count on Isaac Robinson this particular weekend, thinking that in general this tends to be a power throwers course, and coming off of that major, it wouldn't have shocked me if he had taken 10th or 12th or 15th.
Sure.
But he
just
he
with the overall
performed.
competitiveness. You wouldn't have necessarily been disappointed with a 10th.
No.
Anyway, just because of the competitiveness of the overall
But-
division.
But
yeah.
he came out,
Yeah.
shot a great round, ends up tied for second. In 5th place, Andrew Presnell, tied with Bradley Williams and Kyle Klein and Corey Ellis and James Conrad. And then your top 10, rounding it out, Gannon Burr. James Conrad, as we discussed, second round, one of probably the greatest DGPT rounds we've seen in recent memory, and possibly top 5 of maybe all-time DGPT rounds with his 17 under. Just the guy was unstoppable, hit everything inside of circle 2, except for one where he literally couldn't get there because he was on one knee on hole 14, I believe it was. He had to lay it up and drop it in. Other than that, he was unconscious, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, and I know you talked about it when we were with the other guys in the interview, and Conrad's card, he was on the 5th card, I want to say, when that had happened, and he shot the 17 under, and the reality was two things. First of all, we didn't have a camera on him until I think his approach shot on 12 or his putt or both. That's when we got a camera to him. Again, this is a little behind the scenes or a side note to it. When you have a course, like we saw even last weekend a little bit, and people were shredding at W.R. Jackson, or when you had a course like this weekend that we saw in the first 2 days especially, taking place at Jonesboro, somebody to go 6 under through 6, or 7 under through 8, or 9 through 11, like you really you can't count on that turning into or remaining or sustaining itself as a really phenomenal round. And then even at a certain point, there isn't enough of a payoff that, let's just say there's 100 spots, somebody's in 73rd. They're 9 under through 9. We're just getting going with our MPO broadcast, or we're just noticing it that they've shot a perfect front 9. They're 9 for 9. I'm going to even just get a little more specific and say maybe they're 1,002 rated. Clearly they're having a good day. They're killing it. Are they going to finish out as strong? Is it going to matter? Are they going to move from 73rd to 53rd? Is that still as much of a story? Clearly a good round is a good round. However, it may not still be the best story of the day, depending on what ends up happening, of course. If they finish 13 out of 18, it's a really good round. If they finish 16 or 17 or 18 out of 18, obviously it's a different story. Just know that when we collectively in the media do not have unlimited resources, nor a crystal ball, though that's why, and that's where sometimes it gets a little irritating to see or read some of the peanut galleries. Says, I don't believe so and so shot blah blah blah, and you didn't even cover it. It's just not humanly possible.
I love your angry interneter voice.
Yeah.
And
I'm typing really loudly and complaining.
And I know this sounds kind of silly, but we joke in the control room about the curse of the camera. I can't count the number of times we've gotten to like hole 13 or 12 and we see a player who's making a run. And so we send a camera because that's our job. If they're going to be part of the story, we're going to make them part of the story. We get to them and either they've, for whatever reason, just bogeyed or double bogeyed, or the camera gets there and maybe kind of affects the vibe on the card, because where suddenly you're free to kind of do whatever you want. It's a little more casual. When you're on like the 5th card or 6th card and there's no cameras there, it's a tournament, but you're playing with the same guys you probably play with all year long if you're on that high of a card. But suddenly there's a camera there. Things can get tensed up a little bit, and you can truly affect a player's game. Now, from the media perspective, we have to ignore that because if the player can't play in front of a camera, that's their problem. But we do know it does affect players. So we not that we weigh that at all, but we understand that that's an issue. So sending a camera to James is, it was risky a little bit. It always is. But James is a major winner, two-time major winner actually, and just in general one of our stars. And so that was probably, I wasn't in the control room, but that was probably a no-brainer decision at that point with the way he was shooting, getting someone out there to 12 as soon as they probably could. So,
yeah.
Anything else on MPO JomezPro? Like we said, Kelvin just wins this again. He loves it. He's going to buy a house on the property. He might buy the property and just camp there. I don't know. He's a force to be reckoned with, and he's officially, I think, on everybody's scale now, the number one player.
Not
on yours?
Mine.
He's like number 4 on yours, isn't he?
Yeah.
So who's number 1 for you?
Well, that's part of the secret.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't reveal all of my ranking.
You have to send
spots.
in. You have to be a Patreon supporter, and then you get a scratch-off card, and it tells it on there.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they show up. So, Eagle obviously was with a great battle. It cleared that we've seen Eagle firing on. I don't even want to say all cylinders, and I know Doss has said this, and I do agree with him in the sense that it feels like, and I think maybe even Sexton said it in similar words, that it feels like Eagle's not. He's playing far from perfect, and what feels like just kind of okay, but yet here he is on top of the leaderboard, and that's really honestly a compliment. Like, it doesn't even look like he's playing great golf, and he's still right there in that conversation. And I think, if he gets to a point where he's playing great golf, then yes, of course, he's going to be that much more troublesome. Also, the fact that, and I know he's not playing again, and I know we talk about him all the time, but definitely a real story is that Paul McBeth continues to not be
relevant.
I was gonna say not only not dominant, that's definitely not the word, not in contention or relevant, as you're saying, which. You just keep, a lot of fans keep wondering, hey, is this a short-term thing? Is this what's causing this? Is there something specific? Is it a time and era? Is it the beginning of an end, or is it just a slow time for him? Because clearly it's not like it's and I want to be very clear. I don't want any of his fan club to come screaming at me that it's he's not flopping and flailing miserably like a washed up hack. I don't think anybody's claiming that, but
it's not what you said before the show.
Definitely not being in contention and even being in consideration for a few of these events, especially when you look back to him performing well at this event last year, as one more just added factor. So it's not like he doesn't know or like the course or can't play it well. He just hasn't been performing. So I think that's part of the story. And then similarly, in maybe unfortunately a harsher fashion this particular weekend, Kevin Jones, did he miss cash or take bottom cash?
I'm not exactly sure, but
again, a hometown guy that
has played well.
To just kind of, really make sure he breaks out in this capacity in this sense. And that just wasn't the case this weekend. So, we could fast forward 6 weeks and just say Kevin Jones coming off his, 5th top 3 in a row. So that's why I don't put a whole lot of stock in some of these things, but there's still conversation pieces and points that can be made. So, any other events that are worth quickly touching on, A tiers or otherwise, that we usually kind of chatter about?
I don't think so.
What I will say is we knew we didn't know Kat was going to win, or that Kelvin was going to win for that matter. We knew, though, that this conversation that was going to be had tonight, although we didn't have a lot of details ahead of time, we knew that the conversation was going to be had. So already last Thursday, there was a lock-in to have Jonathan and Jeff join us, which we appreciate them doing, especially on such a crazy media day. Someone commented on my page earlier saying they're disappointed that they didn't see Kat merch or Kelvin. I've reached out to Kat, and there is a chance that if our schedules align, I may have some form of I guess it wouldn't really be a drop zone, but it'd be like a podcast of my sorts, maybe if it works out technology and time wise that I catch up with her, or as I told her, if that doesn't work out, that we do something in the next day or two and I release it, that we'll just have to have her on next time when she wins, which at this rate, she's obviously trending in the right direction. It feels like maybe this could also be a spark that obviously gets her that much more, I don't want to say, I guess, comfortable with winning. Third, and now a first in her last 2 weekends. Clearly, she knows what she's doing out there. So,
and it's great. We've said it a lot about the FPO field, the diversity that we have in our winners. You know, I know Kate, as I think called KT, Kristen Tatar has been up on the podium, if not the top of the podium for a while, but we have seen a lot of other people. And if I follow social media, seeing Sayananda saying she's back on the road now. I think she's at Masters Cup this upcoming weekend, and then she'll be joining the tour. You've got Aria, you've got Holland, you've got hopefully Paige Pierce coming back soon. Kat. We have such a variety of women who can all compete. And I know this sounds a little silly, but it might be even more exciting without Tatar. With as dominant as she is, there is, I mean, UDisc, if you look at the UDisc win probabilities, even before the rounds start, she's usually at 60%. The fact that she won't be here, I feel like could open up the field to even maybe more variety of winners.
Yeah, it will. And then the worst part, though, is
I know,
say,
Terry.
Yeah, well...
No, I don't. No, stop with the internet voice. Stop with the internet voice. I hate it.
Kristen wasn't here, so it doesn't count.
No.
You only won because she wasn't here.
Stop with the internet voice.
Just saying. That's
only once per podcast.
Oh
please.
No. There's no limits. When there's one internet troll, then I'm limited to just one voice.
I understand that might be the conversation, but I don't care. Again, as you have always said, you can only beat the people that show up. So.
And it's jumping ahead to the next event, the Elite Series event. That's in 2 weeks, of course, as everyone's making their trek. I pulled it up on Google Maps this weekend. 2,030 miles, 2,022 miles to go from Arkansas to Santa Cruz. It's a little bit of a hike. Well, I'm sorry. Some are going to, that's what it is, to Santa Cruz. Some are going to play the Masters Cup this weekend, which is not an Elite Series. It's not a Silver Series. It's not a major NT. None of those. It's an A tier, and we still have a really good set of people playing there. But roughly 2,000 miles to get from Arkansas to Stockton for OTB Open, and more than one player said, yeah, I'm looking forward to having that entire extra week as our tour is moving across country. That's where we see Owen signed up, Paige Pierce, Katrina Allen, so on and so forth. Valerie's currently on it. We'll see if Valerie Mandahano is possibly back in the mix. Obviously, a couple more weeks for that.
I'm excited to see Valerie get back on the course. I don't want to see her at Masters Cup.
No, I'm saying OTB.
Oh, OTB. Oh, I thought you said.
Yeah.
I thought that was Masters Cup.
No,
I was going to say, if there's a course where you're going to roll your ankle again, it's going to be Masters Cup. Please, Valerie, do not play Masters Cup.
No,
take that extra week and go to OTB.
I didn't look, but I don't see her registered for that. I'm hoping, assuming that's a good call, that she's not necessarily signed up for that one.
And for those of you that are wondering, Masters Cup will have post-production. Central Coast and some other company out there for doing final round FPO, but Central Coast doing all rounds MPO post-production.
I was going to ask that, so I guess I assumed as much.
I assumed as much as well, and I was right.
Yes, and then Glenn actually asked a great question, which is this weekend, I myself, because of course I wouldn't dare take a weekend off because that'd be too smart for me. I committed many months ago, and I'm super excited to head back down to Huck Central, and we're going to have 3 rounds of post-production coverage down there. They have a new course in the mix that might be a preview for something that hits the Pro Tour in the next 5 years. So excited to get a chance to check out the property. There'll be 1 round at, I think it's Oconee is the property, and then the other 2 rounds will be over there at the in the central. The city's name is Central, so if you get confused because it's in the northwest corner of South Carolina, it's called Central, South Carolina, and it's not in the center of South Carolina. But that's where I'll be this weekend. Looking forward to doing some post production. And the last note on post production. Ace Run had an emergency that they had to rush off for. Hopefully everything is good with them. I've checked in with them, but they weren't able to be in Arkansas for rounds 2 and 3 of the FPO stuff. And the quick check-in I had with them as they're out on the board as well. But sounds like they're doing everything they can to be back on the road and prepared to again give you the chase card action over at the OTB and then continue on with the rest of the tour. So hugs and love to all of them, and hope everything works out, that we'll see you guys again at the OTB in a few weeks. Is that all we got for the regular show, Johnny?
That is.
I like it. All right, guys and gals and everyone, we're going to close things out for now. What that means is the after show will be right around the corner. And what does the after show have? It's got a little bit of silliness, talking about things going on that may or may not be within the sport of disc golf. Also, we'll read more up on the comments for what you guys are giving us for questions or other topics that you might want to hear us discuss. And we'll see if things get sideways from there. So we got to thank Jonathan along with Jeff. Big day here in disc golf media. It's on a Tuesday. What a coincidence. We love to see it. So thank you guys both for joining us. Congratulations to all parties. And we look forward to disc golf continuing to thrive and grow, and the entire disc golf media landscape. We know it's a bear out there, and we're just going to keep charging forward. This has been Smashbox TV Podcast 453. That's Johnny. I'm Terry. We'll see you guys in the after show when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the Smashbox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashboxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's podcast 453's
After
Show.
Did we get bought by the Pro Tour yet?
Did you say fired?
No, bought.
Oh, no.
Damn it.
Should I sell out?
I'm ready to sell out, man.
Hmm.
We should ask Jonathan how they did it.
Somebody, no, they don't want us. First, you have to be wanted.
Oh, that's very sad. Nobody wants us.
Yeah.
Dodged a bullet there by nobody wanting us.
Yeah. All right. Welcome, everyone.
I was going to make an adoption joke, Terry. Come on. First, your real mom didn't want you. Now the Pro Tour doesn't want you.
Ah, damn it.
Damn it.
Welcome in, everyone. This is the After Show where, we'll talk about things that are disc golf related or otherwise. I've got a couple updates on my end. We also love to interact with you guys on the board. If you have questions, suggestions for ideas, things you want us to talk about, or things going on that we could pass off as our own unique or original thoughts, those will likely come in from the YouTube chat board. And very first easy question I see out there is, does Gary O still work with DGN/Smashbox?
We fired him.
Is he was stolen from us. DGN bought him out. See, that's how you know they didn't want us.
They acquired Gary.
They acquired Gary, but not us. They wanted to take the new guy and not the old guys. So Gary to the O does work with DGN. He is a full-time employee. He was never a full-time employee with us. He was essentially a weekend contractor that helped us do a couple of things while working a 9 to 5. And then once the Disc Golf Network continued to grow and thrive and expand even more, he was one of the very first acquisitions that they went and snatched him up, put that boy on payroll.
To be fair, we did push hard for Gary to get a full-time job at the DGN. We put in a lot of good words and said that it would make a lot of sense for DGN, DGPT, whatever you want to call it, to hire Gary, because Gary had been with us since basically, I think, like the second or third show, and he knew what we were doing inside and out. Gary's a very smart guy.
He's not listening. You don't have to give him this many compliments.
Don't worry, he's not going to listen.
I know.
In general, though, and I'm going to be honest, I'm very almost fatherly proud of the way Gary has turned out, because he is doing a lot of what I used to do. He has learned a lot of the production, a lot of the back end stuff with servers and all this crap that he probably, 3 years ago, he probably didn't care at all about, and so watching him develop a lot of his different skills has been very encouraging and it makes me extremely happy to see what he's doing, and that we were right in saying, hey, DGPT, if you want a great employee, Gary's the guy. Because he's taken a lot of when there was a studio here in Milwaukee, he was like the studio manager. He took care of all of that stuff. He was setting up booths and computers and all that stuff. So I'm really proud of what Gary has done in general.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully he never listened to that. So
Ray asks, how's Daddy Dana doing? Him and I played a little phone tag today, so we haven't caught up. But I last saw him out there pitching, helping everyone promote his buddy Tall Paul Oman's hat, and I like that idea. I think Dana is doing well on the Discmania side of things. I was just thinking earlier today that we should have another check-in with Dana one of these days here soon. Doc Zen asked, JVD, does the attack on Foundation Disc Golf worry you about Smashbox? What did we just say? Nobody wants us.
Nobody wants our.
Don't worry about us. We're safe. Break down for everyone what you know.
So this morning, Foundation, they've got a couple different YouTube channels, but their primary one, the one with the most subscribers, suddenly started streaming this Elon Musk, Tesla, I think cryptocurrency kind of thing.
I signed up.
And I'm good. You wait in the mail. I'll get to Terry in a second here. Trust me. And suddenly their account was locked, and a bunch of their stuff looked like it was being deleted. More or less, whatever was being streamed was a violation of YouTube's terms of services, and so YouTube locks it down. This is a very common YouTube attack, a hack, so to speak. It's funny because some people say like, oh, it's a YouTube hack. And for some people that's good, like, oh, how can I do better on YouTube? But this is a bad hack. You don't want this kind of hack.
We've been hacked on YouTube.
Like, we've been hacked on YouTube. And so the way it works, my understanding is, because this happened to the Linus Tech Tips channel, and they've, not only are they a technical review and technology podcast and whatnot, but they have 1.5 million subscribers. Foundation has like 70,000. So it can literally happen to anybody. Well, the way the attack works is, if it happened the same way it happened to the Linus Tech Tips, you get an email from someone talking about being maybe an advertiser on your channel or somebody. It's probably a PDF file. You open it. Something in the background runs, because maybe you enable the PDF or it opens, or however what's running in the back of this PDF or file, or maybe it's a zip file. And what they do is they steal off of your computer a file. It's called a cookie. It's basically a login credential. And it's stored, and it stores your currently logged in YouTube. So they copy that to their computer. They are able to then get into your YouTube with your credentials. It just lets you in, just like so you don't have to log into YouTube every time you go to the site. If Terry or I goes to youtube.com, it probably just lets you into your site. It only forces you to log in every 30 days. So it's a convenience. And at that point, they're free to kind of do whatever they need to do.
See, that's why you got to eat all the cookies you have available.
I know.
Because then they're not there for anyone else.
Does this scare me for Smashbox? Does it scare For me, no. Does it scare me for Terry? Yes. Because I don't know what Terry's opening.
Cookie Monster.
Exactly.
No, that looks like a good file.
And no, Terry's, I'm not super worried about Terry. Could it happen to us? Of course. Certainly could. Could happen to, it made me think about today. Could it happen to someone like Jomez or the Pro Tour? 100%. And it would be very difficult or inconvenient, because it doesn't matter if you have two-factor authentication. It doesn't matter any of that. They're literally stealing the logged in credentials, so to speak, and putting it on their computer and able to do it that way. And there's a lot of things that YouTube can probably do better as far as ways to protect that. And there's ways that us as content creators can be better. But yeah, it's a scary thing. And it sounds like, thankfully, the Foundation guys are going to get their YouTube channel back. Hopefully it's got all the content that it had on it, whatnot. I think I saw one of them post on Twitter earlier today, maybe a couple hours ago, more or less saying we're getting very close to getting our channel back. So I'm happy to see that. You know, more power to them. I gave them a little bit of a razzing online. Nothing too harsh, because I'm sure it's not the greatest day for them. So
yeah, it's I as a guy who's, you know, it's obviously similar but different scenario, with the fact that I dealt with my first ever real bout of fraud with my bank account back in October, and I'm still to this day dealing with some either inconveniences and or frustrations with that. And so it's got to feel pretty similar. Just the fact that some a-hole or group of a-holes have nothing better to do, or plenty they feel to gain by, you know, just going out, performing this hackery, you know, which is in this case some version of theft or something, or whatever their agenda is. It's just, yeah, obviously it's frustrating to anyone at any level. So yeah, I feel bad for them. And this goes for every person that gets their car broken into, so on and so forth. It's, yeah, you just got to hate thieves and people that are just jackasses for what feels like no good reason.
But yes, we do what we can to make sure that our accounts are locked down for the normal phishing and hack stuff, but clearly there's another way to do it. And I can't, again, I don't blame the Foundation guys. It's not like I can laugh at them and say, maybe you should have had two-factor authentication turned on. When people get their Facebook account hacked or something along those lines, those are different. But this YouTube one is pretty common, and I don't know. I don't want to say there's nothing they could have done, but it's just difficult, and I don't envy them at all.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of a little bit of theft, hackery, some other silly stuff. I've been watching Florida Man, which has a pretty interesting, storyline to it.
Okay. Is it about Calvin Heimberg?
No. So Florida Man is on Netflix. I was just actually looking at a few of the details. Looks like it's relatively new. I don't know if anyone else has been watching it. Now, let me be clear. I do not think this is the next greatest comedy drama of all time. Oh, it looks like this is, in fact, the first season. I think I'm about 5 or 6 episodes into it. It's mildly entertaining. It's been great. As you guys, most of you know, the extent of my viewing usually goes to finding something, being able to download it 2 minutes before my plane leaves. Like, oh, shoot, I need something to watch. Download it and then watch it. And the first episode was enough to get me into the second and third. So I'd be curious to know if anyone else. I assume you have not heard of it, and
I think I've heard of it.
I don't know that
but
you'd really.
It doesn't sound like an interest to me.
It's not great, but it's not bad.
It's a great sell. Let's put that on the poster.
Well, I'm just saying that's kind of my official review of it. It's been all right. I don't know if anyone else has something to comment on that. Also, I do have a little bit more of a review in that I also went to Sun River Brewing this weekend. As many of you know, when I'm in Bend, one of the unique things that we do, as much as they're not paying me to wear my Bevel sweatshirt, we don't just go to Bevel. We often do usually one of the nights or one of the days after our broadcast. But every other night, we go to some other place. So I've kind of had this front row, this very unique experience of being there all these number of nights. And then I feel like I've been to very few places twice. It's part of being in Bend is obviously they have a ton of microbreweries, ton of food cart pods, all this other stuff. We went to Sun River, which was our first time, and they had a sit-down restaurant. Sun River, I feel like, is a semi well-known brewery. And if when it's all said and done, their pretzel was amazing, and their Rhino Stout, which is a barrel-aged imperial stout, pretty damn good. That'll be my real quick, simple review. Pretty damn good. If you're into imperial stouts, anything barrel-aged like that, yeah, it was good. So there's my reviews. Oh, and if you do get over to Bevel, they have there's 4 food carts, 4 trucks that they have. They recently, I don't want to say swapped out, but one or two of the trucks had to leave. One guy getting out of the business, so on and so forth. They've then replenished with 2 other trucks that are there. So there's 4 trucks that are there, all 7 days a week. And I can give another affirmative plug for sure by Juniors, whose specialty is mac and cheese. And then a million different sides that you can add onto it. Pretty damn good. So, as if you need another reason to go to Bevel, well, when you go out there and you want to choose from one of your 4 places to eat, I'll say Junior's mac and cheese is amazing. So, see, look at that. Dan Harbeck says checking out. I thought you said checking it out. Have a great week. See you, Dan.
Have a good night, Dan. Appreciate
it. Halal Guys truck? No. Did I look and see that there's a Halal Guys maybe in Portland? I'm gonna find one. I'm definitely gonna visit as soon as I do find one.
I honestly have no urge. It doesn't seem like the type of food I'm super interested in.
I'm there to support. They support disc golf. Don't
maybe
be such a jerk.
Maybe I'd get some fries.
Don't be such a jerk.
I mean, if there was one nearby, I would maybe grab some fries. But the food just doesn't.
No, I guess it's not in Arizona. Might be my next bet. I'll find one and I'll report back to everybody.
Okay, good.
Do you think the Pro Tour should just probably send me to New York to go try it?
I don't think they should.
I think you're wrong. Okay. Tara Bear can rack some mac and cheese. I mean, I think I eat it just like anyone else. I don't normally go out of my way for mac and cheese, but this is like a true from scratch. This guy's gone through culinary schools, blah blah. This is some high end.
It's not Kraft.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's too bad. I like Kraft.
All right. I had a review of something else too. It was a really good one, but I don't remember. So we'll get back to that later.
Well, maybe next week I'll have a review of the Standing Rocks Open.
Oh gosh, Johnny V going to play.
I'm gonna play around.
Should we send cameras?
Probably should. I'm sure the middle to bottom of the MP40 division will be
some great views.
It's phenomenal views, Terry.
Yes.
Send one of your cameramen.
Oh my gosh, I can't think of something much more miserable.
Neither can I, and I'm the one playing it.
Oh my gosh.
I'm actually excited. I haven't played up at Standing Rocks in 4 or 5 years, if not more maybe. I don't remember last time we went up and played.
It's been way longer for me than 4 or 5 years, personally.
I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, so I get a chance to go actually play an event this weekend, and it's the first, I was telling you before the broadcast, I've got my basket out back, so I've putt a little bit. I'll go out there and I'll throw 20 or 30, 40 putts with different putters. Right now I've got a stack of Pures in the Steady BLs, which I'll tell you, neither of them are really floating my boat yet. They're both a little bit stable for what I tend to like.
It's not you, it's the putter.
Well, it is when they're both the same. I like a very straight putter, so I'm still kind of leaning on my my deputies because they're a little bit worn in and they go real straight, which is the style I like to putt. Flat, straight, right at it. But I'm trying to get these new putters starting to break them in a little bit. And I don't know which one I like better yet, the Pure or the Medium Pure, I think is what it is, or the Steady BL. I might play around with more putters. I might get some more this weekend just to mess around and see what's going on. We'll see what happens. But so I've putted. I haven't literally thrown a disc in, I think, 9 months, maybe 10 months.
If your overall natural skills and abilities don't just kick in,
then what good is it?
Then really.
So the first Friday, we're heading up Friday morning. I think our buddy Steve and I, we're going to head up probably around 8 or 9 in the morning. Get there, get a practice round and a half or 2 in if we can. And I'm sure that'll probably wreck my arm and I'll be all complainy the rest of the weekend because I haven't thrown forever. But it will be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see myself finish, like I said, middle to bottom of MP40.
Yeah,
So I'm just a hair too high on my player rating to play MA40, which is probably where I belong. So going to do the MP40 action, and we'll see. The good thing is I don't believe these courses have changed much since we were last there 5, 7, 10 years ago, whatever that is. I'm hoping it's like riding a horse. Just get right back on. Or a bike, or riding anything for that matter.
Yeah.
We'll see. There's a good chance, though, that I'm going to come in like third to last.
Okay.
Well, we'll find out. I'll report. You can follow me live on PDGA Live.
I will absolutely not be watching the live scoring.
Yeah, you'll check it out. You'll check it out to laugh.
I mean, I'll be recording stuff.
Yeah. I'm saying like Saturday night, you'll log on and be like, oh look, scroll. There's Johnny.
I don't know about that. I wouldn't count on it. Yeah. Doc
Then
says,
what I'll do is I'll call you and go through every hole with you.
Yes. Well, on hole 1, oh man,
and the guys I played with, what they shot to. So I was like with Jeff, and he threw off to the right. You know where the right is, Terry.
Yeah,
it's got the
you
swag.
don't want to be over there.
You don't want to be over there. Every hole, I'll make sure.
That would be great.
Or I can Voxer you, or voice chat you after every hole and give you an update.
Yeah, so it'd be like live.
It'd be like live
coverage.
Yeah,
that would be exactly what I wouldn't want. Yeah, I think I'm gonna pass.
You don't have a choice.
I'm going to also tell you guys that since last week, I released Chiang Mai footage. So if you're interested, I realize it was from a few months ago. Doesn't matter. You probably weren't thinking about it. So now it's a surprise. I think it was on Thursday or Friday I had released it. And so Chiang Mai Open footage. They have 2 courses in Chiang Mai currently. This is one of the 2. Scott Stokely, Shasta Chris, a couple other guys. All in the hunt for going into our final round on a Sunday morning, and I've got that released. And here's also a little plug, not kind of. I'm curious to know what you guys think of the intro music. A gentleman had offered to put something together for me. I ended up putting it into the intro, and it's definitely got a different beat and tone than what I've had for my last few videos. Well, for my last 5 years of videos. So I'd be curious to know what you guys, any feedback you guys have. You'll also hear it this weekend as well. So, all right, Doc said, oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. I can't think of something more exciting for your wife than for her to film you playing golf this weekend.
First of all,
what would it take?
For her to film it?
For her to film.
Oh, my God. I can't. New diamond earrings or something along those lines. Like that was, if I said, honey, here's a pair of giant diamond earrings, she might do it.
I wouldn't.
Well, no, you don't have your ears pierced?
I have my ears pierced.
Still?
Even if I could pawn them off, I still don't think the money would be worth.
No. She used to love walking around with us or me when we would play. We'd go to tournaments. She'd just kind of hang out and walk around before we had kids. She caddied for me one time in my entire life. And that was at Sandy Point. But that was really it. She would, I'll tell you what, if we got rid of the kids for the weekend, she would love to come along and walk around. But she's actually very busy this weekend, and she has she's a coordinator for Gigi's Playhouse. They're doing a big fundraiser this weekend for a run 5K. And apparently it's been planned for months and months, as these things are, but she never put it in the calendar. So when I signed up for Standing Rocks, it was like a week and a half ago. I was like, yeah, next weekend, I'm going up Standing Rocks. And she looks at me, she's like, wait, what weekend? I was like, yeah, next weekend. Not this upcoming one, because it was a week and a half ago. I said, but next weekend. She's like, wait, that's the same weekend in my run walk. I was like, yeah, so? I don't know. It's not in the calendar, hon. Sorry, it doesn't exist.
No.
And so there was a little bit of a discussion there. So we ended up having to find, we're going to find some babysitters. So mother-in-law will come down for the weekend.
Love
babysit. But yeah,
all right,
so she wasn't extremely happy that I was
how
leaving.
about this? You just find somebody that will get me vertical cell phone footage of all of your shots. And then we put that together.
How about just a bunch of pictures, like as I throw?
Yeah.
So you have to scroll through them to see if I make it or not. Like, oh,
yeah,
darn it.
Then take a picture of your of your paper scorecard. So after every hole, I'll use that to update the scores. It's just a picture.
Good call.
And we'll just slide that in, and then we'll put some music, and it'll be this beautiful montage.
That sounds like a great
I
plan,
don't know.
Terry.
You guys are. I can hear you guys getting all excited and geared up for this.
Ugh, can't think of anything more miserable.
Okay, yeah, maybe not. All right. Congrats, Paige Shue. Posted that she got an ace this week.
Meh.
I'll just throw that in there, Paige. Congrats. Oh, Paige Shue also and Grady. They had a big weekend.
They went to go see Taylor Swift.
To T Swift.
Hannah Macbeth went to T Swift a couple weeks ago.
I know. That's some big time stuff here.
When are you going to go see some Taylor Swift?
My daughters think I'm going to take them, and I keep telling them they're crazy.
They're not.
T Swift comes to the nearest she gets to us here in Wisconsin is Chicago, and it's over. Again, there's zero chance ever that I would be paying for those tickets, but she does come to Chicago, and it's the Portland Open weekend in about a month, and so just driving the point home that much harder that I will not be taking them. I'll be working in Portland. All right. I'm going to see if there's anything else as Johnny gets our Patreon peeps all ready to go. Oh, I've got some discs. Somebody reached out to me and... Sorry. Speaking of reaching, couldn't reach. Somebody reached out to me and was looking for some older discs. I finally took a few minutes that I had today to go try and hunt a couple down. So I'll be sending those back, some pictures and some options. Right now, unless you massively object to it or you reach out to me soon enough, tonight's giveaway will be our Skyline Classic. Oh, unless Johnny buys it from me first.
What is it?
That is a Roach. So it sounds like something you should be throwing. But it is a Roach with the Skyline Classic logo on it.
Don't know.
So,
Don't think so, Terry.
Anyway, that's what we've got for a giveaway. But I was digging deep because somebody said, "Hey, is there any chance you have these?" And so just before I came here,
Is that a Glow Flex Buzz?
It's a Glow Flex Buzz.
Oh, that is a Buzz.
A 2015 Ledgestone Glow Flex Buzz. He said, "Do you have any?" I'm like, "I got boxes."
Of course I do.
Of them. So I ended up finding a few that I'll be able to offer up as an option to him. It is funny sometimes to get these of course random requests because I got a lot of random discs, and it's just a matter of finding them all. And these have been tucked away for a few years. And here's these do need to be busted back out. Is some people should be losing their minds over some of the very earliest ever crystal flex zones. I know there's the Zone OS, blah blah blah. Yeah, this was before all that.
That's pre-Macbeth.
Yes, 2015 crystal flex zone, and I found that I must have stashed a few of them. So
Go figure.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, you were talking about organizing discs. For those of you that are on the Discord, the Smashbox Discord, I think I updated the link on the YouTube. If you're interested in joining, look at our YouTube. I think the Discord link is updated. This weekend, I got a little ambitious, and I created some wooden disc racks. Kind of, what's the company that does them all?
Disc racks.
Is it disc
Heiser racks?
Heiser
maybe?
racks, yeah. Kind of modeled after the Heiser racks a little bit.
You
But
patent breaking a-hole.
Again, they were modeled after. They're not anywhere near as nice. These are pretty raw. I had a bunch of spare wood lying around, so more or less two ends, some slanted brackets underneath to hold the discs, and one board to support it, to secure it so it's not so twisty. And I made 4 of them, and now I've got I took some pictures and posted them on the Discord, but I took a bunch of discs out of bins. So we now have I now have a bunch of racks of discs. It saved quite like a shelf and a half of space. I was able to move a couple things around and consolidate a few things. I left some of the collector stuff that I have still in bins. As you know, you and I both have a bunch of the 4-claw stuff. And I've got some old CE crap and just signature discs. I kept those in bags and I kept them in boxes or the bins because I don't plan on ever needing them to take them out. But I clearly will need someday the 2012 Wraiths that I still have that are all slightly used, the white Pro Wraiths.
Yeah.
or the the
PFN, bro. Yeah, those are PFN.
yeah, those
I
are
need some of those.
those are PFN, or maybe the X clone,
Mm.
the 2 or 3 X clones that I have, the couple cyclones. Those are going to be in high demand, so I need to make sure those are at the ready.
Easily accessible, yeah. And don't worry, Hyzerax. I'm looking right now. You have nothing to worry about.
You do not have
Johnny.
anything to fear.
It's not. It will not be putting you guys out of business.
Someone asks, how do I like to organize them, by speed or color? Honestly, they're by manufacturer. I just put, because that's how I had them in bins. So I just put all of the Discraft up first, and then I put all of the Innova up first, and that's primarily what I have. I have a few random, DGA discs, a few random DD discs, but that's, I think, a couple Discmania discs, but not many. And even those, I think, are very early Discmania discs, the ones that had like Psycho on them and not the, DD3 or whatever they are these days. But yeah, so they're really just up there by manufacturer, and then no specific sorting. At some point, maybe if I get bored, I'll go through and put like, hey, here's all putters, here's all Innova putters, here's all Discraft putters, here's all. But honestly, I do have one little area that's, front and center off to the right, which is stuff that I more or less could have in my bag. There's probably maybe 20 discs there, that things that might still go in my bag. Everything else, I doubt would ever see my bag again. And, there's a couple putters, a couple drivers up there, as far as, I think there's like a couple Stalkers, some Destroyers, an ESP Zone, some Comets, 1 or 2 newer buzzes, not the older stuff. And that's really about it. So that's kind of how they're organized. It's nothing fancy. I literally just threw that stuff together it probably took me 2 to 3 hours to cut all the wood, assemble them pretty sloppily, and do that. And I was fortunate enough to have spare wood, so it didn't really matter. Otherwise, it was just going to get burned.
Someone just reached out to me here this evening. If you need boxes or bags for storing or shipping your discs, I'm your guy.
Terry's your guy. He just gave me some, because there was a few discs that I have signatures on that I didn't have bags for yet.
Yeah, let's and just in case anyone really does care, and some of you are familiar with this, some of you aren't, you can go out and get a Ziploc bag, which is going to cost you more money,
which is what some of mine are. They're like the freezer bags.
The one of the, and I know this might sound silly to some people until you really actually get into it a little bit. The bags that I typically offer up are 9x9. Which is almost exactly perfect for like 98% of the discs you'll ever see or throw. And so when you put them in, there's not a lot of extra space on the top, as I'm doing so right now. And so as you see this is obviously the zone. But as you put them in, when you have bigger bags, which are usually like 9x11 or 9x12s, or sometimes 10x12s, there's a couple extra inches then, and they don't store nearly as well. And so I know somebody'd say like, well, I could just go to the dollar store. You could go all sorts of places. You can. And I think if you're going to protect a disc, putting it in a plastic bag is a very good start, regardless of what it is. However, there is an advantage, and these are not just like common. You're not going to go to any grocery store or dollar store or hardware store and just find a typical or a standard 9x9 bag. So there is an advantage to getting them, and then they store obviously within your bins and wherever else that much easier. Or if you're shipping them, there's not a lot of excess that goes along with it. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
And if you're going to ship it, obviously you should be using my disc in a box from Terry Miller, which is the most versatile box out on the market.
Nobody makes a better box.
Nobody makes a better box. Ray asks, so Johnny, is there any way Smashbox itself would be valuable to the DGPT if they wanted to buy it? You've already sort of donated years of problem-solving engineering to them already. A while ago, many years ago, there was talks of Smashbox kind of joining up with the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and Terry and I decided at that point we didn't think it was the right move for us. I mean, I didn't want to quit my job at the time, which I think is what it would have been. I would have been a full-time employee. Instead, what we do is we agree to be contractors and help them out and work with them. In the future, is there a possibility for Smashbox? I don't think so. Individually, maybe.
We don't sell out, bro.
Yeah, we're not sellouts like Jomez. God, that's so dumb. I don't know personally. I don't know what we have to offer as far as Smashbox, the company, other than the podcast. And so I don't necessarily see there being a big value to the Pro Tour. And I think there's something that could be said about what the Pro Tour did with Jomez. I mean, it clearly Jonathan had kind of hinted that, it was difficult financially for them at the moment. The Pro Tour could have just sat for another year, finished this year off, and been done. And say, cool, thanks, Jomez. They already have the cameramen, hire 2 or 3 editors, and they could have replicated to a point the post-production that Jomez does. I mean, we've already seen that they can do post-production with the silver events. That's Central Coast. It wouldn't be tough for them to have maybe acquired Central Coast instead and done that. But the Pro Tour, I feel like, extended an olive branch to Jomez and the community to show their goodwill, and I respect them for that. They didn't need to do what they had done. And granted, Jomez has other things. It's not just their post-productions. Obviously, it's like the putting game and the podcast. So that was all part of it. But I mean, in theory, I've said for a long time, the Pro Tour didn't need Jomez, but they chose to acquire them. And so I think that is very upstanding of them to say to the community, we see value in the people that helped build disc golf to what it is. So it's an interesting scenario. But as far as Smashbox, I doubt it. I don't think there's much that Smashbox itself has that the Pro Tour would probably want. Now, the master superior intellect on the people behind Smashbox,
they don't want that either.
They don't want that either, let's be honest.
Come on.
No, who knows? Who knows what the future holds, but you never know.
Right. Doc said, just feel like DGPT is going to clamp down with a lot of NDAs, and I wonder if they would ever kill Smashbox by not letting Terry talk about disc golf without approval. I mean,
you can't
what Johnny's point is. Obviously, if there's NDAs and certain things that I just in general can't talk about, or Johnny couldn't talk about that.
We couldn't talk about this acquisition. We knew about it for months. Like since the All-Star break, we've known about the fact that this was going to happen. It just wasn't finalized.
Yeah, and so there is something to be said about us still being independent of the Pro Tour to some regard as well. The fact that and hopefully we've never crossed a line or don't ever plan to cross any line of, there's things that we see and hear, as Johnny just alluded to, knowing that something was of this nature was somewhat in the works. Of course, we didn't know every single detail, but knowing that even this Jomez acquisition was a conversation piece, and then us just not talking about it for months upon months. Hopefully, we continue to maintain that integrity and trust with them as to what things can or can't be talked about. But also, even with all of that being said, there's going to be times where, whether it's an event or a decision within the Pro Tour, that we don't just simply, toe a company line of exclusively whatever they're saying, thinking, or believing as well. We still have of course, we still have our independence. Now, if it's
freedom,
if there's still something that we may have a slight bias because we're in the know or have a relationship, and I'm not going to deny that's not the case. Mm-hmm. However, 9 times out of 10, I feel like us being in the know just maybe strengthens the reason why we have the bias that we have, because there's oftentimes something gets announced, somebody has a reaction, they're wildly off base with their assumption, and then if someone like us comes in and makes either a defense or makes a statement, it's probably because we have more information, and so maybe we're not seeing it as the original complainer was saying in the first place. So, yeah, I said specifically, I'll admit this, I said this specifically to Todd Rainwater one day in the last few months. I said, me having this separation also provides a little bit of a buffer. So if I said something incredibly stupid or ridiculous or out of pocket or whatever, and I'm not an employee per se, you got a little extra buffer there. Mm-hmm. You're not necessarily liable for something that I may do or say.
Yeah, I've run my mouth on Reddit before. Somebody says something dumb, and I clap back at them. And I feel like if I was a Pro Tour employee, I would not do that. I should not do that, especially if it's related to the Pro Tour.
Yeah, so there's still a fine line. Now, does that mean we're going to be out there, stirring up controversies or blindly screaming or complaining or getting all worked up? No, probably not. I think we'd like to maintain still a little bit of civility no matter how we feel. I think that's just a good move in general. But yeah, in direct and indirect ways, we represent and work with the network and the Pro Tour, and that seems to be working so far until we do something really
dumb. And I'll say, I've said it during the interview, we work really close with the guys from the Pro Tour. Me specifically with the guys in the control room, Terry with the guys in the booth, and then occasionally on the course. They're good guys.
Yeah.
Like I respect every one of them. They work hard, and they are good people.
Yeah. So even though we're not directly W-2 employees, we clearly treat this all as we're all on the same team.
I said we earlier, like when I was in the interview, like I'm like, it's not really we, it's me as a contractor. So
yeah. Spock says that I'm looking forward to the senior tour that Callie McMorrin has been working towards. Interestingly enough, I have a particular weekend off at some point, and I was thinking, man, can I go play golf somewhere? And I looked, and where the tour, the Masters tour was.
It was called the senior tour.
Yeah, the senior tour. It wasn't in a place that was even remotely viable for me to be able to get to really for a weekend of play, but it was something that I looked into, and I'm equally as interested to see. I believe they have a standings. I think Statmando's doing them. I think is where they're hosting their standings right now, and to see who is playing how many events. Is this a regional thing where if it's in your area, you're playing it, or are they actually gaining some additional traction where people are trying to follow and play multiple events throughout the tour? And in the early goings, I think the most I've seen anyone play, I don't know if it's 2 or 3. Kale, I know, has played in 2 of the events.
It's probably Schwebby.
Yeah, no, surprisingly he wasn't. But that's something that I will be interested to see is this a tour in which people will tour, go out of their way for, or is this happens to be a tour that a stop is going on in their town and that's what they're going to show interest in? And can they build it to a place where people are actively going out to tour? Obviously, that would be the plan. Hence, it's called the Disc Golf Masters Tour. So,
Dr. Magneto says, and this is kind of something I want to touch on. He says, Jonathan made a bad decision for buying those rights, the 2-year rights at $250,000 a year. I'm going to disagree with that. And I know Jonathan says what Jonathan said. I don't know what he really thinks. Maybe that is what he truly thinks. Maybe he's putting on a great front. Maybe he thinks it was a good or a bad decision. I can't say. I'm not in his head. But it's a really funny position to be in because we said no other production company could have touched that number. Not anywhere close.
They wouldn't even thought of it.
Yeah. Like that just Jomez was in such a unique position to, in theory, be able to afford that at the time. But there's a difference between maybe what it's worth. Because what I'm saying is just because they're the only ones that could do it doesn't necessarily mean that's not what it was worth. Because you have to take the account of what could the Pro Tour have done. And I always looked at it as like, is the lead card worth $250,000 a year? Probably. You know, if the Pro Tour had said, all right, this is the number we're looking for, and Jonathan had said, nope, I don't feel that it's worth that, maybe we'll go cover second card, and the Pro Tour took over the lead card, I truly believe that the Pro Tour could have made $250,000 on that lead card for them. You know, as I said, you hire an editor or so, you've already got the cameraman doing live, and then Sean Jack, who is the lead, I don't call him lead salesman. I don't know what his technical job title is, but he's the guy
partnership manager.
Partnership manager. Thank you. He's probably the partnership manager for the Pro Tour. How great would it be to, which they can do now as well, 2 years ago, say, hey, we can Ace Run Productions. We can sell your ads on the live, and you can get them on our new post-production thing. So I believe that the value is there. I'm not arguing with the number. Just because Jomez was the only company that could provide that number doesn't necessarily mean it was the wrong number. I truly think the Pro Tour could have gotten that amount of money out of it themselves if they truly wanted to. But it's all hard to say. That's speculation. And so I don't necessarily think, was it bad for Jomez? I don't know. I don't see Jonathan's books. I don't really, it seems to have worked out for them. So ultimately I'm happy for Jonathan and the entire company that gets to now work with Disc Golf Pro Tour. So it's just a funny position to be in as the only company that could afford to pay it. But was it worth it? And how do you define that worth? Is worth what someone's willing to pay for it, or is worth what you can get, the type of money you can get out of it? It's interesting.
Yeah, and I think Spock's right on. He says Jeff Spring is going to take the Jomez footage and put it all on DVDs and then sell it.
That's a great business plan.
Yes.
Has anyone thought about DVDs? But Terry, DVDs are old. How about we go Blu-ray?
Yeah, that would be probably the best way to do it. I could see doing some Blu-ray discs.
Can I put the stickers on the discs?
Johnny V's going to pull our Patreon support number here tonight, and we'll have a free giveaway. As I just mentioned a little earlier, I still have a little bit of this very sweet Skyline Classic action, and yeah, I'm happy to get this one sent out to you.
No one can see that, Terry. We have 144 people eligible for our giveaway tonight. If you want to be eligible for the giveaway, you can go to patreon.com/SmashboxTV. We're still independent. This is how we fund our stuff. We're not.
We need it.
We need it. If you also want to be eligible for the giveaway, you can go to smashbox.tv/weekly giveaways, and that'll get you entered in. You just have to enter in every week. And I pulled in 3 or 4 names this week as well. So thanks to everyone that continues to go out there and submit your tickets, even if you're not a Patreon supporter.
Well, Johnny, the amazing board is letting us know that we have 2 to do tonight, since we forgot last week. Or didn't.
We did not do one last week.
I'm all about it. Yeah, we'll have 2 then.
Sounds great. So
let's pull. We're gonna pull the very first number. That's gonna be our winner, and then we'll pull the next number. That'll be another winner.
All right.
And we'll get stuff sent out to you guys.
All right. I sorted it by first name.
First name.
So the first number is 29.
Aardvark is in luck.
29. No, I don't think there's 28 people in front of Aardvark.
Any errands? We're gonna find out.
All right, 29. I said, right. So let me scroll up. That is Chris Spear. Congratulations, Chris Spear.
Thank you, Chris. I have never shipped to Chris Spear before.
So
in terms of a giveaway, so I'm excited to do so.
So Chris Spear, you'll get an email from Terry. I will get your email address, send it over to him, and we'll get that to happen.
Yeah, we got to double check that we've got the correct. Just the other day, after being gone for a while, out of nowhere, something else returned to me. Somebody didn't give me the right address.
Oh, Terry.
There's nothing in my. It was my daughter who said, "That kind of sucks. Don't you have to pay for that?" I said, "Yeah, we did. We paid for it to go out.
Double shipping.
And then when it comes back." So hopefully we can get to the bottom of having the updated and correct address. Believe it or not, oftentimes when you don't receive something, sometimes it's my fault because I'm not caught up. A lot of other times, I don't have an email or I don't have an address for you. So let's...
If you are a $3 and above Patreon supporter, we have your address in Patreon, so please make sure that's up to date, especially when we want to send you the Patreon discs. But also, if we don't have your mailing address, that's when I give Terry the email address.
I can't send you free stuff.
And then he has got to reach out and all that stuff. All right, Terry, let's do our second drawing tonight.
There we go. It can't be Chris again.
It cannot be. Well, if it does 29 again, which in theory it could, but if it...
Well, I'm saying we'll have to repoll.
We would. If it comes up as 29 again, we will definitely repoll. But it's not going to. I guarantee it, Terry.
Oh, you can't guarantee
I'm going to guarantee it.
But you can't.
I know, but I'm going to.
I mean, the odds are very unlikely.
I'm going to guarantee it. And the next number is 29. No, I was kidding. 130. 130. So let's look at number 130. Gonna scroll down towards the bottom. Ted Tracy. Congratulations, Ted.
Love it.
Ted Tracy, you are an early smashy at the $1 level. So thank you very much for your support. Hopefully you'll get something great from Terry.
Sweet. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to come pick it up, I could bring it to Bevel. I don't think you're near there.
Oh,
but you're in Oregon, so I'm just going to assume it's near
Just
Bevel.
leave it at Bevel and just let him. Everything's near Bevel, probably.
That's what we'll tell him. So very much appreciate that, Ted. Thank you. We'll get something here shipped out to you. Carney asked, "What's the story behind the rap song intro?" It's a pretty short story.
I rapped it.
Yep. No, a gentleman reached out to me, said, "I'd like to make some music for you." I said, "All right, I've got none of those talents, and I could use some music." He said, "Here you go." I had an intro, and now we're going to be able to use the beat as well, as that will go under future drone previews. I put it into the Chiang Mai footage. The only response that I got was positive. So to me, that means it's good enough to keep moving forward. So look for it in this weekend's coverage as well over at Huck Central.
Ray asks, "Hey, are you getting any money for the ads on the podcast that you've been putting in?"
Yeah,
and
we're about to.
The answer is yes.
Are we getting rich?
We're getting fat rich, Terry.
Heck yeah.
I think it took about 2 months, and we earned about $100.
Dang.
Yeah, 2 months to earn $100 on our podcast ads. That's something.
That's something, and we appreciate it.
Yep. And if you don't want to hear those ads, you can be a Patreon supporter. They get it ad-free. But if you don't mind listening to the ads, that's how you're contributing.
Yeah. Doc says, "Terry, meet them at Bevel and buy them a drink since no shipping." The shipping would be way cheaper for starters.
No, fly out to Bevel. Extra time.
But yeah, no, that's a great idea, especially if I get Nate and Val to sponsor the beverage. Then no, I don't pay shipping or for the beverage. Now,
if he is near Ben, just have him show up there and just take a disc out of Bevel's inventory.
That's even a better idea. Be like, "Oh, hey, this disc off the rack, that's for you."
Hey Val, Patreon, and just walk out.
Yeah, exactly. Put that in the books. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. Nate has brewed and now barreled a stout, and damn, it's good. It's not in their wheelhouse typically because they're so hoppy and IPAs, but he has brewed a phenomenal stout.
Ray asks a question. I was gonna say it's a great question, but I mean,
but it's not. You're hesitating. You're pausing on it.
I'm not saying
I'm
not saying it's a bad question. What are your thoughts on disc golf companies holding stamp design competitions where they solicit free submissions from the community and use them? I think it's a trash idea. I don't like it at all. What I would rather see is these companies have people submit examples of their work, and then you can maybe win the opportunity to work for them, and you still pay them. Like, you still have to me, you should pay the artists. And it feels like a kind of a cop-out to say, hey, we're gonna do a design competition, then you get like these 4, 5, 6, 7 designs, and maybe you reuse them, maybe you work with the artist, maybe you have them, but you should be paying the artists. That's my thought. I don't like the design competition idea. I think there's better ways to do it. I think, like I said, I would rather see them submit, hey, here's some art that I have that I've done maybe for other events or just personal art, but not necessarily art for that particular contest. I'd rather see that because I think it is cool if you're an artist and you want to get your art put on a disc. Trust me, if you're an artist and you want to get your art put on discs, first of all, reach out to Terry. Second of all, reach out to almost any tournament director because usually they're looking for some sort of art just locally. I guarantee you can probably get your art on somebody's disc. Somebody will, if you're that interested. Now, again, some people maybe want the recognition of being like, oh, this is my, I got picked for this stock stamp, which could be cool. Sure. If we'll throw the Destroyer out there like, oh, that's my art on the Destroyer, and they make hundreds of thousands of them a year. Yeah, I pay the artists. Pay the artists. That's my take on it.
Okay.
And saying that, anyone that wants to design something can send it to me. I've got a plan.
Doc Zen says, Terry, any chance Bevel doing well enough? Val might be out on tour soon. Couple points to that. One, she's pregnant and going to have a child in 2.5 months.
Well, what do you think Nate's for?
Hand
the child off, go on tour.
So there's that major perspective. I mean, you think of child, you think about recovery from having said child. all of that. So that would be a significant, a mildly significant amount of time at this point. But more importantly, that's not where their passion is. That's not where their desires are. They right now, and I speak to them often, and I spend 12 to 16 hours a day with them when I'm out there. Usually, that's not a goal right now. That is not in the plan of, hey, we want to get Bevel to a certain point so we can get back on tour. To me, it feels like they are very, very happy with where they are in growing Bevel. Bevel is their life and their livelihood, their passion, and playing golf just flat out isn't. And both of them, especially Nate, from what he's told me, doesn't ever want to half-ass it. He doesn't want to show up to, maybe he qualifies or is qualified to USDGC because he's a previous champion or whatever. Or Discraft says, hey, we really want you at the Green Mountain Championships next year, whatever the case might be, on a sponsor exemption because he's not qualified otherwise. He's just not interested unless he's putting in a full effort to get back in disc golf ready shape. He has no interest.
I would love to ask him, and maybe you can ask him, how long does he think it would take for him to get back into, like,
I'm going to say a full 60 days of playing,
full 2 months,
practicing every day. And more importantly than just practicing, having the passion and the desire to practice.
Yeah, that's
and
all
doesn't
assuming.
have that in the first, so you have to have that to really put in the full effort. Mm-hmm. And then I bet you maybe he would say 30 to 45, but I think
30 to 45 to get into caching, and then 60 if you want to start maybe thinking about competing.
Yeah, and he doesn't have that interest, and I'm not on his level, nor is Johnny.
What?
Similar to us, like I just don't have the interest. I have the time to go play disc golf. Mm-hmm. I don't have the passion or the drive or the ambition to go out there and actually A, play, or B, practice to get it even better at.
And that's where I'm at. I want to go out and play and compete in tournaments and have fun. I still don't have a passion to get better. I know that sounds silly.
Exactly. Like, no, it's not silly.
Like, to me, going to a tournament with my friends and hanging out and being in the environment, whether I take, I'll be, I won't say disappointed. I'm sure at some point during this weekend, I will be upset with myself because I am not as good as I used to be. Hands down. I will throw a horrible shot and go, God, if I practiced, I know I wouldn't make that mistake, and I'll get down on myself. I guarantee it. But I also don't have the time right now or truly the dedication to go out and be like, I am going to get better. I want to be competing in the MP40 division, not just playing. And I'm happy to go and play. Like, to me, seeing all my friends, hanging out, throwing some discs, and if I'm lucky, maybe I take bottom cash. If I have a great weekend, and I'm not counting on that. So, and nobody else, nor should you. If you're placing bets,
don't put them in your fantasy.
Don't
lineup.
Put me in my in your MP40 fantasy lineup for Standing Rocks.
Yeah, do not do that. I know there's a lot of people in on that weekly league, but don't get in.
I think, talking about Doss and getting back on tour and whatnot, I wouldn't be shocked if he was more excited to start up a second Bevel, like across town or something, before he would, if you got to that point where it's like, oh, we've got this Bevel up and running, it can go on its own and don't have to think about us. We're not even needed. I think he's more likely to say, let's open another one before he has to say, let's go back on tour.
Yeah, they're just,
and I don't know.
I don't think I'm sharing any real secrets by saying that just isn't their interest right now. And maybe in a few years, 4 or 5 years, maybe they have a little bit of a change of heart where they, are interested, but
I don't think so.
I was just gonna say, I don't even think that, but
I think here's how I would see them getting back into the sport. I could see possibly, like, in 4 or 5 years, them deciding maybe they're going to run an event. Like, hey, let's run an event here in Bend. Like a real, like, a good B tier, and maybe try, if there's a good enough course, try to get it to an A tier or something. That's how I could maybe see them doing it. It's sponsored by Bevel. It's all this other things. I just don't see Nate coming back to the tour at this point. He's got too much pride in how he did play that I don't want to say he would be scared, because I don't think he's scared to come back on tour, but it's a different sport.
Yeah, well, he doesn't want to come back if he's not fully practiced.
And the funny thing is, even fully practiced at his age, the way the courses are these days, like it's a different sport than what Nate, even when practically when he left, like Nate was a far thrower for his time. Like he could probably push 400-foot throw now pretty easily. But I mean, these guys out here are pushing 550. Sure. I just don't think that it wouldn't make any sense for Nate to come back in today's age for some reason. I don't know. I would love to see it. I'd love to see him go get 2 months of Rocky style, montage practice and come back on tour and see how he does. But I just don't see it happening.
I don't think it would take him that long to use the number that was thrown on the board. I don't think it would take him that long to shoot 1030 golf.
Oh, no.
Because he has been so naturally gifted and talented that 1030 golf would not even surprise me whatsoever. I mean, when I played around with him at a decent course last year, the guy, even rusty, is still pretty damn good, and nobody should be surprised by that. He's
got that floor that's on the 11th floor.
Yeah, exactly. He's pretty damn good. But he doesn't want to come out if he's not fully practiced and at in prime condition to do so.
Buzzed Swan nails it too. Discraft probably doesn't even make half the discs in his bag anymore, so he can't lose them. That's why he doesn't play anymore. Yeah, he just can't lose them. Sorry, that's an irreplaceable disc.
Right. Val won Worlds in 2016. They still were playing in 2018.
Yeah, didn't Nate win Green Mountain in 2018?
I want to say it was Green Mountain in 2018. Is when he won. So, again, they are. That's just not, and having a child now on the way, certainly not any of their focus right now. Val is about to celebrate her birthday. I think she's turning 37.
I wouldn't have said that out loud.
In a few days, and Nate will be doing the same roughly in a few weeks. Him and Nate Sexton are within a few days of each other, I think, for their birthdays. So, same exact age as well.
Roger Knock has a great question. Damn, this show is long. That you're right.
It is.
We do. This is what we do every week, Roger. And it's everyone used to make fun of, and rightfully so, make fun of Smashbox because of how long we went. It was 3 or 4 hour shows. But a lot of the other podcasts, like if Foundation ever gets their YouTube channel back, or Ulta World, Ulta World does 2 shows a week and like a subscriber bonus, I think. So they're putting out 3 hours of content. They just spread it out a little bit. We get it all done in one night,
And I do have a very brief update because I see it taking place on my personal page on Facebook, so I'll quickly address it. Mark Hill earlier had said, got to be honest, a little disappointed Cat Merch isn't on the show tonight. As we kind of alluded to just a little while ago, that we already knew we were going to have the Jomez and Jeff Spring conversation and the Pro Tour conversation. In addition to that, I did reach out to Kat. And in addition to that, Kat had replied now saying, hey, I'm all good. I'm enjoying my week off. And I'm also traveling across country, but I'm enjoying my week off. And so it's no big deal. And I'm not really doing interviews. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case somebody wanted to still be either inquiring and or upset or disappointed or frustrated. I had reached out to her. I did ask if she was interested in an interview, and she said she was politely declining, which, just to be very clear, nobody's ever mad or offended. And yes, we know that is typically somewhat of our protocol, is to not necessarily just always have the winner. Winners are commonly who we have the weekend after event, but it also somewhat depends from time to time on as to who they are. And when it's someone like, we'll say a Vinny or a Kristen Tatar, when they're winning so frequently, we're not going to have them on week after week after week after week, regardless. So Kat would have been great to have, and but the fact that she's sticking to her own and has politely declined, we want her to enjoy her victory. So I just wanted to throw that out there. A little bit of an update, even from a couple hours ago.
Well, Terry, let's wrap this up for tonight. We've had a great night.
I guess we can wrap it up. Who was JVD who sent the message on Terry's page?
It was not me that sent that message on Terry's page. I think the one about Cat right there. When you said you checked your page.
Oh yeah,
it was not me.
No, it was Mark. It was Mark Hill who asked about it. Mark, a big smashy, and I appreciate Mark's support. And it was a very, very valid and fair request that he had that we have her, and also very valid and fair that she is politely declining. And
well, if she wasn't on Nick and Matt, they have everybody on. I think you could win 3 weeks in a row and they'd have you on every week.
Yeah, so
they like their guests.
So. All right. Well, thank you. Why wrapping it up early? It's not actually. Usually 3 hours is about the average. So we're a little over that tonight. But we're going to thank you guys for joining us for the after show. We're also going to thank you for joining the regular show. Hopefully you got some good, useful information out of the groundbreaking acquisition partnership thing that's taking place over there at Jomez and the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I think it's going to be good stuff for disc golf and for all of us as consumers and the rest of us in the media landscape. So for Johnny V, I'm Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy. This has been Smashbox Podcast 453's After Show. Look forward to seeing you guys for Huck Central this weekend for the post-production, and then we'll also talk to you guys next week on Tuesday night. We'll see you next week when you step inside the Smashbox.